Blog Talk Radio.
Good evening.
Good evening, Keith.
Ladies and gentlemen, here is Rachel Maddow. Good evening, Rachel.
Good evening, Keith.
There's been a spike in the desire to own guns in Connecticut. Statewide, over 90,000 guns have been authorized for sale. You know how I feel about it.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Good evening, my fellow Patriots. I'm your host, Jeff Norton, and you are listening to the Midnight Patriot podcast and radio show coming to you live from the great state of Wisconsin. Man, today was a chilly day. There's nothing like getting up in the morning and having to scrape a little frost off your windows and stuff to let you know that winter is fast upon us. So we got a full show here tonight. Obviously, if you guys have been following us and stuff, we are going to be talking about the different sects within Islam to kind of give you a little knowledge there. We do have our tech tip section. We are going to be talking about Senator Cruz and NSA, IRS, all of the three-letter organizations, I think, made it into our show bag tonight. But I have to tell you, we have a very special guest. Obviously, we're going to do our salute to the troops. But we get back from that break after the salute from the troops. We have presidential candidate, 2016 presidential candidate, Stone Anthony, joining us. I do apologize. It's kind of a last minute change in our schedule and stuff, but when we have the opportunity to have a patriot such as Stone on and everything, we kind of shuffle everything. That's the nice thing about being who we are, not being part of that corporate media. We have the power here at the Midnight Patriot. But if you'd like to join us, you can always listen live to every one of our broadcasts at www.themidnightpatriot.com. You can download it in iTunes. You can put the mobile app on. We have all the links there and everything. You can listen to our old shows. Like us on Facebook. Stay in touch with us. We did some changes to the website today to try to accommodate some people to get some more news out there for you and everything. But like always, we're gonna start our show off with the Star Spangled Banner. That's provided. That song's provided to us by Madison Rising. That's MadisonRising.com. Go out to their website. They are the official music provider for the Midnight Patriot radio show. Next week, I think we're going to have them on the show. Next week's going to be just incredible. Our guests that we got lined up for you are just going to be amazing. But tonight, like I said, we have a very special guest, Stone Anthony, when we get back from our break. But first, let's take care of a little bit of business here. As you all know, those that listen to the show, the new listeners, we do a segment to honor our fallen soldiers. And we start out every show that way. And we will continue to do every show that way. As long as there's a soldier who's put in harm's way, who pays the ultimate sacrifice, we will always begin our show with a dedication to them and to their service to this country and also to their families. So with that, let's get started. Army Staff Sergeant Patrick H. Quinn, October 13th, 2013. Army Sergeant Patrick C. Hawkins, October 6th, 2013. Army Captain Jennifer M. Marino, October 6th, 2013. Army Private First Class Cody J. Patterson, October 6th, 2013. Army Sergeant Joseph M. Peters, October 6th, 2013. Lance Corporal Jeremiah M. Collins Jr., October 5th, 2013, Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Army Specialist Angel L. Lopez, October 5th, 2013. Our hearts go out to your families. I know that there's a big void in their lives with your loss. There's a big void in our lives with your loss. Any soldier that puts on America's uniform, we want to say thank you. Regardless of your political beliefs, if you believe in the wars or not, you have to honor those that pay the ultimate price for our freedoms. And this is true. I will always say this. If you are a soldier, if you are a family member of a soldier, if you are, if you lost a family member who was in the armed services, you can always, and you need help, you can always call the Midnight Patriot. You can email us, Jeff@themidnightpatriot.com. We will get you the help that you need. We are, 80 to 90% of our listeners are military or ex-military, active duty, or retired. And we can find you the services to help you and your family get through this hard times. So with that, we'll take a moment of silence, and we'll remember those that have given their life for their country. All right. Like all things, we must continue. We must carry on. That's the way that they would want it, and that's the way that it's just going to be and stuff. So, normally we would take a break here, but we got a special guest on, and I don't want to keep him holding for too long. I know he's got other things to do. Running a presidential campaign, especially trying to get the votes or to get the petition signed and stuff, is not an easy thing to do. So, I'd like to introduce everybody to 2016 presidential candidate, Stone Anthony. Hey, Stone, are you there, buddy?
I am, brother. I'm having a hard time hearing you, but
all right. Well, here, let me juice it. Let me give you a little bit more power. How's that? Can you hear me now?
About the same.
Is it? How about now?
No.
Can you hear me? I feel like AT&T, man. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go. That's a little bit better.
All right. So,
Anyway.
one of the things that we stress here at the Midnight Patriot is, getting involved. I mean, obviously what's going on up on the Hill in Washington, D.C. has just got everybody aggravated. And, we're firm believers, get into the political system as soon as you can. And, you're jumping right into it. You're actually running for president in 2016. Can you give our listener audience a little bit of your background?
Sure. Well, we're starting our campaign now because we know we've got a mountain to climb here. So, we're not going to wait a year or two out. We got to jump on this thing right now. A little bit about my background. I served in the U.S. Army back in the 80s, and I got out in 89, and I've been a part of the Veterans Administration for about 20 of those years, and as a soldier that earned his benefits. And here in the last couple of years, I've had some issues with the VA that kind of propelled me into paying a little bit more attention to what's going on and the atrocities that I'm seeing. And me personally, I had an incident happen to me, and you guys can go on the Army Times from last month, and you can see an article that was written. There was a surgical fire that happened while I was having some surgery on my knee, and basically they set me on fire. And ever since then they've been denying it, and they're making me sue them and that kind of thing. So the fact that our soldiers are coming back from war and having to endure not months, not weeks of applying for benefits and things like that. They're being made to wait years, and that's horrible. We shouldn't make them wait for the benefits that they've earned, especially the ones that have gone off to war and served their country proudly, without personal any.
Sure.
So anyway,
sure.
I'm having a very hard time hearing you, brother.
No, can you hear me now a little bit better or no? We must have
it's not the same. I mean, I'm wondering if you should just call me back or something.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we have a bad connection here.
Yeah.
And so, do you want to hang up and just call right back in?
Absolutely, I'm gonna do it right now.
Yeah. Okay. We'll drop off. Sometimes we have these problems. Telecommunications doesn't always go the way that we want it to be. So, let me guys kind of give you a little bit of background while we're waiting for Stone to get back in here and stuff. Like you said, he was a U.S. Army a vet, served his country distinguishedly. He has a son who's 22 and a daughter who's 26, and he's a biker, likes the bikes and everything and stuff. And I think as he's going to tell you here, and I think for most Americans, there's a pivotal moment in which you wake up and you go, oh, what the heck? And for me, it was a couple things, obviously, being woken up. But one of the things that actually turned. Hey, Stone, are you there?
I sure am. That's much better.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. So I'm giving while you were away, I was giving the audience about your background. Tell them, that you're a family man. You have a son and daughter.
Sure, definitely. Yeah. So anyway, after my military career, I went into the business world just like everybody else, and had some pretty good success with that, and I went into construction field and built a nice little company doing that, and the market for myself and just about everybody else back in 05-ish took a turn south, and so we started looking for other things to do. So I organized the Suzuki Owners Club of North America, and basically had the opportunity to travel around the continent, most of the United States, Canada, and Mexico, and got to meet thousands of people, and learning what everybody's all about and seeing this great land of ours, and it's definitely worth fighting for.
Sure. And let me tell you, thank you for your service to this country. I mean, I can't tell you how much that means to us and my family, and everything. We deeply appreciate it, and it makes me sick too when I find out these vets are being treated the way, last week with the vets on the memorial by I know. Yeah, I know you have a few choice words about that one. And, what really did it for me is, after the SEAL team, the SEAL team 6 members, when they were killed, soon after they disposed of Osama bin Laden, when I found out that the president gave them all form letters, the families, got form letters from the president of the United States. That was just, to me, that was the last straw. At that point, I kind of overlooked what he was doing, caught in my own little world, trying to run, my business and doing the things I needed to put food on the table. But after that, I said, this is a president. He's got to go. He's got to be out of office and stuff. So, I'm a strong advocate for, social, working at the grassroots level, and, you running for president, that you don't get any higher than that and stuff. But, you've got to battle. I mean, just to even be just to be recognized. I mean, can you kind of explain to the audience what you're having to go through?
I certainly wish I could hear what you're saying. I can't hear a word you're saying, brother. I don't know. I know you're saying something, but I can't make out what you're saying. I don't know what's wrong with the phone. But
that's weird. You have a bad phone and stuff. Oh, wow. You can't hear me at all.
I'm gonna try calling you back.
Okay. Seems like we got Obama phone going on. Doesn't work, my listeners and stuff. So we're gonna try this one more time. Hey, this is what happens. We're being plagued here. We got Obama phone, and everything. So going on with it. So, I was actually shocked. And the reason why I asked Stone to be on the show tonight was because we were originally, I thought when you run for higher office, the process of, obviously you have to get on the election, the ballots and everything, but he's actually having to go through a process which is tantamount to a miracle, and that's why he's on the show tonight. We want our listeners to understand that the process, and he needs your help. regardless of, if you believe 100% in his policies, and you can go out to his website, stoneanthony2016.com. That is stoneanthony2016.com, and look at his positions on certain key issues and stuff. But right now we're at a critical point. In order for him to get even on the ballot, to even be recognized, we have to raise over 1 million signatures, or we have to get over 1 million signatures in order for Stone to even get on the ballot. And that's why, we're talking here tonight and everything, is that if, I'm a firm believer that if you want to run for higher office in this country, there should not be any hurdles for that. Are you there, Stone?
I am, yes.
So much wow, you're blowing me out now.
Am I?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I can always turn you down. That's okay.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
So
yeah.
What does it do? Is it just starting out kind of loud and then dying off there at the end?
Yeah, it just fades right into, I can hear a muffle, but that's about it, so I don't know.
Oh, wow. All right. So,
Yeah.
It's a bomb phone. we got a bomb phone here in keeping with no, we shouldn't go, because to me a bomb phone means a whole different thing,
Absolutely.
a whole
Absolutely.
So I was kind of telling the audience while you're away. So, can you kind of explain to the audience the hurdles that it's one thing to make the commitment to run as president, but it's another thing, the hurdles that you're going to have to jump through between now and I think there's a deadline for you, right?
Absolutely. And the other thing too is, with the two-party system that we've got going, to even get in the race, you've got to, you don't have the billions of dollars that they're going to be able to raise. You're not going to have the connections that they're going to have. And what I'm counting on is the American citizen having essentially had enough of, politics as usual. I'm not a politician. I don't intend on becoming one. I intend on being an American citizen that's patriotic, that loves his country, that wants to see it prosper. And, going to Washington, because I'm going to win. I'm not disillusioned that I'm not going to, and I'm not entering this because I've got a statement or something that I'm trying to say. I genuinely give a damn about, the American people and what we're going through right now. And, as far as getting on the ballots in all 50 states, each state has a different requirements for number of signatures, how they're submitted, timeline for getting them done. So, essentially what we're doing right now is we're looking at the American people and saying, okay, out of 315 million, can I get 1 million of them to basically get me on the ballots in the 50 states, and at that point, then we can participate in the process. Still doesn't mean that we're going to be invited to the table, but at least at that point, we'll have, met the requirements that the establishment has set forth. And there's a tremendous like you said, a tremendous amount of hurdles that we have to, to overcome. The political system has been set up by the people that have basically been destroying this country, and destroying the morale. I think the country will always be here, and I think it'll just continue on its wobbly course, but the morale in this country is extremely low right now with all of the, the different things that are, coming out of Washington. I'm a big 10th Amendment fan, and I think that many of the issues that are, being discussed in this day and age, and should be left to the several states to handle. Because what's good in Washington State may not be good in Florida, may not be good in California, may not be good in New York, may not be good in Wisconsin. Yeah. And the governors of those states are certainly elected by the people in their state, and look to them for guidance and things like that. And so to have this monstrosity of what our forefathers did not envision was, this federal government that is so overshadowing every aspect of our lives is, it's just not cool. It's not, It's not something that the patriots of this nation, I'm not talking about, anything short of criminal of what's coming out of Washington, the way they behave, these unfunded mandates, these funded mandates, just, they're in your daily lives, and they're in my daily life, and you know what? I don't appreciate it, and it's not what my Constitution says. I've got absolute rights that they seem to feel they have the right to deny me.
Sure.
My freedoms and my liberties, my personal freedoms and liberties, mean everything to me, and that's kind of where I'm at with that.
Sure. No, I mean, I get it. I mean, today I was actually talking with a journalist friend of mine, and this is a report that's coming out. You guys are going to hear it. You heard it probably here first. Is the fact that the federal government at its current spending rate by February 22nd, that's when they got to reconvene for the debt. We're going to be $22 trillion. 22. We're already over 17 trillion. We're going to be at $22 trillion in debt.
Well, that's the actual debt that we pay. We pay on every day, but I mean the actual debt of this nation is somewhere around the 90 to 100 trillion dollars with future pensions and Social Security payments and stuff like that. So, that's one of the other misnomers that I think that the federal government wants to try to fool you with. I mean, we're in debt far, far, far beyond what they're publicizing. And, numbers that big, they're not even real numbers. They're nobody can possibly be keeping track of what we owe. And it's all designed to keep the general public, the general citizens of this nation, in the dark on things. If we ran our lives like they run our federal government, it just doesn't even make any sense.
Oh, we'd be in jail.
George Bush, when he left office, I think that the stated debt of the country was something like $9.5 trillion or 10 trillion or something like that, which still is, not a good thing. So how by February 22nd are we up to 22 trillion?
That's what they're going to report.
In 5 years we've spent $12 trillion that we didn't have the money to pay for. We borrowed that much money.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, they and this is coming out tomorrow. It's going to be in Forbes, I think, is the article. My friend is an independent writer, and they're putting it together, but they're reporting. Of course, there's a lot of pressure to keep it down, but February. See, a lot of people don't realize. You talk about the criminality of what's going on in the Hill. A lot of people don't realize with the law that was passed. Basically, what it did is it removed the debt ceiling limit and said we will reconvene on February 22nd, and we'll set the debt ceiling. So basically, we allowed our government to, with an open checkbook, or not checkbook at this point. Checkbook would denote that you had money in
the Sunday before, I was down in Washington, D.C., and, Sarah Palin was there, and Ted Cruz, and Mike Lee, and, the Tea Party poster people. And, I listened to them talk, and, and listen, I don't dislike them. I think they're patriotic Americans, but I think that their agenda is, puts them right in the middle of what I see as the problem. And, it's time, and what I saw down in D.C., from a standpoint of the citizens coming together to right a wrong as far as removing the gates and stuff like that from the World War II memorial and things like that. We've got a government system. The politicians there on the Hill, I mean, even in the White House, they are simply out of control because they've been bought by big money, by the international bankers and the entire the way we're doing things right now is the American citizen is not even considered. So I think that if you're in that pool of people, and I'm talking about elected officials, then we don't stand a chance, because how can you in good conscience support or pass laws that degrade the morale and the financial stability and the everything that seems to be wrong with America right now is coming out of that town. And, we must put a stop to it. I mean, we need to put a stop to it right now before it gets any worse. But, God knows what's going to happen in the next 3 years before we have an opportunity to, potentially, retake our country, our government. And keep in mind, these million signatures that I'm talking about are not just for Stone Anthony for president. We intend to run folks for governorships, Senate, Congress, the entire run of political offices, right down to the town supervisors. I've not been able to identify one segment of any federal, state, or local government that is not touched by some corruptness to degrees that would, make you cry, basically.
Sure.
Today in Culpeper, Virginia, I've got some supporters down there. They were delivered one of those MRAP vehicles. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh,
those
absolutely.
war machines that were built to protect soldiers from IEDs over in Iraq and Afghanistan. And the discussion today was, why on earth does Culpeper, Virginia need one of those vehicles? And stamped right on the side of it says, this vehicle did not cost the local taxpayers a dime. And I took exception to that. That vehicle was entirely paid for by local taxpayers' funds. Which clued me into something that got me to thinking, and I'm going to write a position paper on it tonight, which is when they get our money, when they get our tax dollars, they forget that it belongs to us, and we should have some say-so in how it's spent, and that's not happening. So.
Well, yeah. I mean, they got a free checkbook. I mean, just it's reported now that all the members of Congress are jumping on airplanes and flying down to Florida for a funeral. I mean,
yeah, what's that all about?
Yeah, I mean, don't they have enough money? From my understanding, after watching the 60 Minutes, the piece on them this weekend, they have that thing called it's the Leadership PAC Fund, and that's what that's for. So, but we're going to be apparently. I mean, the good news is there won't be any laws to oppress the American people being written Thursday. The bad news is, they're all flying down to Florida for congressional members, for his funeral, and it's just,
right.
This.
Well, I'm not sure who died, but I mean, it's you can bet your sweet butt that America's paying for a great deal of that or any other type of.
They've already said they've chartered Air Force military charters, and they're flying them down there. So the American people are paying for all of it, and stuff. So I mean, it's just, you're right. It's gotten completely out of control. So you raised a good point. I did not know this. So the signatures, the million signatures that you're trying to do, obviously you are the head, of it's called the American Citizen Party, right?
Yeah, the Party of the People, the American Citizen Party, Party of the People.
Yep.
And our intentions with that is to, it's obviously not a political party like the Democrats or the Republicans. In other words, I'm taking a different approach to this entire process, which is, if in fact our government is the people and our Constitution, protects that right, then if the people congregate and get together and speak as a voice that we've had enough of the politics as usual, we've had enough of this broken system, that is the revolution right there. That is when the people stand up and say, we've had enough, we want to do something different, we want to control our destiny, and we're not doing that right now. So yes, that million signatures is essentially can be used across the board. In other words, when you go to Illinois or you go to Wisconsin, and we start collecting the actual paper signatures that we're going to have to submit, we will have a slate of folks that are going to be running for various offices. Hopefully, I'll be at the top of that ticket in the sense of running for president. There'll be somebody on the ticket for for governor of Wisconsin, somebody for the senators from Wisconsin, the Congress, the state, and the federal. I'm hoping that there will be local people that will be involved in our situation that'll want to run for their local mayorship, their city councils, the school board. Because my plan, and if you get on my website, which is stoneanthony2016.com, I've written about my flat tax plan. I've written about my ballot access. I've written about what it means to be a state and the sovereignty of a state, and welfare and illegal aliens and just the whole gamut. A lot of those problems cannot be solved simply by correcting one issue. You must correct a series of issues to hopefully guarantee a success of any one of them. They talk about jobs in this country like it's just a word. Like, oh yeah, we created another 178,000 jobs, which is not true. We don't make anything here in America. We've got to bring back manufacturing, and we need to bring it back in a big way and not just talk about it. We've got to do it.
Yeah.
And when you start making things, then you start providing jobs for people that have to make those things. And, that's when you can truly put a nation back to work. We've got an infrastructure that is absolutely failing, and it's crumbling around us. There are millions of jobs right there. We have to make the investment in our nation. Well, actually, we have to make a reinvestment back in our nation. We've allowed it to get to the point where it's failing. Our bridges, our electrical grid, our highways. We all know what the problems are. So, if we weren't spending $12 trillion in 5 years, God knows where, could we have reinvested that back into our country?
Well,
the answer to that is yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've
got a whole section on my website regarding foreign policy.
Sure.
Our role in the world for far too long has been, the world's keeper. And I think that we should be a good neighbor, obviously, and we should certainly provide any type of humanitarian aid to disaster victims and things like that. Absolutely, because that's what Americans do. But we've got to stop propping up these other countries out there. We've been spreading democracy for 100 years. It's time for them to start either, practicing it or, we've got to stop doing it. We've got to stop teaching it. So we need to come back home, and we need to focus on the problems here. There's numbers being thrown around out there. Y'all know that I'm a proud, veteran. I served my country well. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. We have veterans that are homeless, that are hungry. Right now, as we're on the phone, there are guys that are out in the cold right now. They're lost. They're suffering from various types of health issues, mental health as well as physical health. Where's the help for those guys? Don't get me wrong. There's help out there, but it's not readily available to most of them that need it kind of immediately.
Yeah.
But anyway, I digress.
No. I mean, you're right on. I mean, I'm a numbers guy. So, I mean, the thing is, one of the things when you listen to the show, I like to put numbers behind it. And, you talk about the foreign aid, and it's great to see your position, your policy position on foreign aid. We just wrote a check to Pakistan for $1.6 billion. $1.6 billion. Yeah. We just gave them. In the last 5 years, President Obama has spent over $3.6 trillion. This is stuff that's coming out today, and you're going to see it in the news. Spent $3.6 trillion on social programs, which they haven't been able to track the benefit. In other words,
right.
You and I, if you gave me $3.6 trillion, I should be able to come back to you and say, this is what you got for it, and they can't track it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Well, it seems to me back in my day when I was, a youngster and numbers were thrown around the federal government, they seemed almost understandable. We talked about, a couple $100 billion here, a couple $100 billion there, and you can kind of figure that out. You can say, okay, well, that's 3 more zeros, more than $1 million. Okay, I understand that.
But man, when you start talking about trillions of dollars and running up the debt for our grandchildren and their children, that's some scary stuff right there, because everybody that's probably listening right now at either one point in their life has had a paycheck, that was, X number of dollars, but they needed, X number of more dollars just to pay for everything. Well, what we did was we tightened up our belts and we said, okay, well, I may do without this for a couple of weeks, or I may do without that for a couple of weeks. The federal government just seems to just be writing checks that, that our grandchildren are going to have to cash someday. And bottom line, if you really want to know why I'm doing what I'm doing, that's the reason right there. I have 2 grown children that are, hopefully soon going to be having grandchildren, and they're going to have, grandchildren. Folks, we've got to wake up in this country. We've got to see what down the road, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now, what it's going to be like. And I'm not even going to get into the illegal alien aspect of that conversation. I'm just talking about from the massive debt that we're piling up. And those issues, I think, with approaching them with some common sense, ideas, is what we need right now. Because when you sit down at the coffee table with your wife or your husband, and you're looking at your bill situation, I mean, you come up with creative solutions to whatever your issue is. And there's just too many people in the cookie jar right now that are depleting it, of our national treasure, and we've got to stop doing that. I'm not sure why we're sending all that money, to Egypt and these places that, at least on the surface, seem to not like us very much. So,
well,
are we trying to buy friends over there?
Actually, if you
look at history.
Well, actually, I got a segment after we're done with you. We kind of push the segment off and stuff. I'm going to explain, Islam and Sunni and Shia and all that stuff, and then we're going to kind of bring in we're and this is all, like I said, we deal with the fact here, and where Obama sides on this, and I can tell you, as I was actually preparing, getting ready for this show, the whole time I was just like, oh my gosh. It's scary. I mean, it really is, yeah. and it does because you ask yourself, you're right. Wasn't it Pakistan that was harboring Osama bin Laden?
Right.
So you're like, right. Why are we still giving him a 1 point? Isn't it Pakistan who now is in prison? The doctor, the one that told us, that Osama was there, and now we're going to give him 1.6 billion. It's mind-boggling. Why are we giving weapons to Al Qaeda? Why are we giving? Why is Ambassador Stevens basically a weapons dealer through Libya, through Turkey, and then down to Syria? Why is that? Why? And if
well, those are all perfectly good questions. So hopefully you've got some.
Oh, I got answers.
Insight to that.
Oh, we do.
I will tell you this from a layperson, from an American citizen looking at this, we're going, yeah, I don't like that. I don't want to do that anymore. Yeah. But it doesn't seem that our voice is being heard. So, I want to go back to a little bit about the campaign in a sense of what I'm trying to do here. Everything that you talk about on your radio show, Jim, and what I've been on lots of other radio shows also, and the theme there is, get rid of Obama, impeach him, throw them all out, whatever. Folks, you got to understand something. That's not how our political system works in this country. We can't just simply throw people out. I mean, even if we put Obama on trial for this, that, and the other, can you imagine that Congress ever convicting him, or the Senate even convicting him? No, you can't, because the people there they don't have any backbone. They're beholden to somebody else. They're not free thinkers. They're not able to make decisions based on what's good for the American people. They're making best decisions for who's paying them the most money. So all that energy and everything that's being spent on impeaching Obama and that type of thing, while it's good for I think the morale and a sense of creating a patriotism and a spirit that we haven't seen in a while, don't lose sight of the fact that the only true way to regain your government is at the ballot box. And I'm telling you, I've got this movement in this program out there that's called 115 million patriotic citizens, because that's how many of us it's going to take to retake our government. Because 50 million are going to vote Democratic and 50 million are going to vote for Republicans. It's the way it's always been. And if you look at your history books, the last 100 years worth of elections, it's been roughly 115 million people have voted. And those people are going to continue to vote that way. And there's nothing we can do about it. It's the silent majority is who we need to wake up. And our American Citizen Party needs to be about 115 million strong, just to combat the fraud, waste, and abuse that's done in our political, voting system. We had some districts in Illinois and I think one in New York, 100% for Democrats. It's not possible. You can't get 100% of anything, Yep. So people have gone on the news and they have said, yeah, I voted 6 times, and they're still walking around, okay? No charges were ever, nobody ever went to jail for that kind of stuff, but so we need citizens to focus and to unite together behind, themselves, basically. And I'm telling you, folks, if we don't do this in the next election, if we do not take our country back in the next election, and like I said, all the way from down to the elected animal control officer right up to the President of the United States, our country is going to not exist the way that we remember it, okay? They're diluting our population. They're allowing illegals to come in here. And I'll guarantee you this: over the next 3 years, they will give amnesty to the illegal aliens in this country, and they'll make it seem like they're, going to tax them and make them pay back and all this other, but they won't. I mean, how do you ask somebody to pay something back when they're barely making enough money as it stands? You're just going to take an IOU, but it's too late at that point because you've already given them the power to vote. Once you give them the power to vote, there you have it.
Well, I mean, North Carolina, I don't know if you heard this, but North Carolina just announced the embassy. They're actually putting a Mexican embassy in North Carolina because in order to vote, you have to have an ID. Well, they're going to put an embassy there, and the Mexican embassy is going to be issuing Mexican citizens IDs. Okay.
Yeah, well, they can issue all the Mexican citizen IDs that they want, but I'm telling you what, within the first 24 hours of my administration, we will be signing an executive order that basically says you have 30 days to register yourself in this country with some, at some facility, whether it be your local law enforcement, police stations, or whatever. And I'm serious. Within 30 days, if you don't do that, you won't have another opportunity after the fact. And then after that 30 days, you've got 15 days to apply for citizenship. Now, that application is not going to be a rubber stamp. It's going to be, there's going to be a whole slew of things as to why you could or could not become an American citizen. But, the bottom line is there's going to be no more green cards. You're either in this country as an American citizen or not. No more of these green cards, no more of these work visas, none of that stuff, because it's all been broken. The whole system has just been abused over the years, and we don't know who's coming and who's going. I mean, when you have an entire culture set up, like, for example, in the suburbs of Detroit or, northeast Washington, D.C., where you've got hundreds of thousands of a particular, human beings that aren't necessarily Americans, something's wrong there. Some process is broken, to where that can happen, because even as big as the U.S. government is, I mean, how do you check 250,000 people?
No, yeah.
You can't.
Well, they can. I mean, I think there's only a couple hundred actual investigators in the federal government to do it. But that's all by design. I mean, let's not kid ourselves.
But you can't check 250,000 backgrounds. You can't do it.
There's no way.
It's not possible to do it effectively.
Yeah.
Just recently, the gentleman that supposedly shot up the Navy Yard, he went through background checks, and then as it turns out, I guess the company that provided those background checks does like 45% of all background checks for the federal government. So, what else is going on? Who else don't we know about?
Oh yeah.
Again, I don't necessarily believe all the news media that I hear and stuff like that, but when I look at and I hear stories about different people in Obama's administration and things like that are have ties to this and have ties to that, I wonder, Mary down in Ashland, Tennessee, she couldn't come to the White House, but yet some guy who supposedly is a known terrorist and has ties to Al Qaeda can come and go whenever he pleases.
Yeah,
as offered a job. It just doesn't.
Yeah.
It just doesn't compute with me.
Well, I mean, we talk about that. I mean, there's reports right now. There's six of Obama's top advisors are active members, card-carrying members of the Muslim Brotherhood.
Let me ask you a question. Was Barack Hussein Obama, was he born Barry Soetoro?
No, I believe that was his changed name. That was his. Trying to think how that works. That was his name that was put on his administrative, which actually just came out in the news last week, where they found the records where he accepted foreign. He got foreign aid money as a foreign student, and that was at Occidental College, and that was his name that he used on the transcript or to get the foreign.
But is Barack Hussein Obama? Has anybody done any background or research? I mean, is that a coveted a Muslim?
It is a Muslim name. The history. All right, so there's two tracks here. Obviously he was built. He was born there. The tract, of course, he wasn't even born in the United States. He was born in a village of Kenya. I mean, we actually have video. You can't get it anymore in the United States, but it was a BBC interview that was done with his grandmother. By the BBC when he was a senator, and she clearly said she was there when he was born. There's no record of her going to Hawaii, and she said that he's the son.
Well, I only go through that. I only asked those couple of questions because where I wanted to go with this was, he seems to be very friendly towards that religion.
You need to. That's exactly.
I guess it is a religion. And he seems to surround himself with those folks. Well, the whole Egypt thing with the Muslim Brotherhood and stuff like that.
Well, it's funny. It's funny. Now, you and I mean, let's be full disclosure. We didn't talk about what we just talked about earlier today about your party and your movement and stuff. Right. That's exactly what I'm going to be talking about after I'm going to be drawing those lines for a lot of listeners, and it's scary. I mean,
I look forward to hearing that. But so let me just conclude my thought. I'm not going to go too far into it, but what I'm saying is, since he's the leader of the free world, he's the leader of our country. We elected him. Blah blah blah. He doesn't seem to put as much into the American citizen and what their issues are as he does for folks that are overseas, that are in foreign lands. In other words, what about right here at home, guy?
Yeah.
Why are we spending so much of our energy and treasure on helping those folks figure out their own civil wars and things like that when we've got people here at home that have needs? And I said this on the radio a couple of weeks ago. I said, I was talking directly to Barack Obama, and I said, look, you're the leader of this country, whether we like it or not. You are the leader. Start leading.
Sure. Well, and it goes back to the whole fact that he's a community organizer, and the community organizers, they live off of the fact that you have something, we want it. and it's not a leadership kind of role. It's more of a, it's more of a, get the mob together and we'll just take it from you and stuff. So, as I was going down, to your, on all your positions and everything, I was reading the, check. I only had one issue, and I was just bringing up, the flat tax. I am for a flat tax, but what's scary, what concerns me about flat taxes, those things always go up, but they don't seem to ever come down. And so my concern with the only concern I have with the flat tax is the fact that.
Well, I think I'm most proud of that, because that to me is the center of the universe for how we're going to right this ship. And you may or may not have read in there, in the details, but the concept of Americans paying their fair share should be something that everybody understands and that everybody could conceivably agree upon. In other words, if it actually costs us $800 billion to run our country every year, I can't imagine a patriot not saying, okay, I'll pay my fair share. Now, obviously, we want to put in place mechanisms where, if it goes up 0.25% from 9 to 9.25%, or goes down 0.25%, 8, to 7.75%, whatever the percentage is going to be, there has to be put in place a mechanism where it can't jump 5%, it can't jump 10%. You understand what I'm saying?
No,
In other words, when the president, who by law is supposed to prepare a budget every year, when he prepares that budget, basically that's what sets our flat tax rate. Now, if we got rid of the trillions of dollars of waste that we're spending every year, and the American public understood what we actually spend to run our country, minus all of the bloated bullshit, I'm talking the actual cost to run the country, which we definitely know is not $22 trillion, or at least, having run that much up, I think we could all get behind something like that.
Yeah.
Deductions are gone.
I agree. The business owner, when you got Bank of America, you got Chase and all those guys making trillions and trillions of dollars, and I pay more in taxes than they do. I agree with you. I think a flat tax is fine. My only concern is politician. Maybe not, because.
But I'm talking about creating a Congress and a government that is of the people. In other words, listen, when you go to Washington to do your public service, when you're done doing your public service, you're going right back to work. In other words, you're not going to be living off the government boo ball for the rest of your life. Okay? Congress, Washington was not intended to be a career move. Okay? So the same laws that you enact when you get there are the same laws you're going to have to follow when you get back home. So there's a lot of incentive there to not let things get out of hand, because, we drastically have to change the morale in this country as it relates to our daily lives and our Constitution and what it means to us and in our daily lives, because I don't think there's a whole lot of people that like what's going on right now, unless you're one of the folks that's getting things for free. We've all seen the videos. We all know what's happening as far as the fraud and everything. I talk about getting rid of welfare, but you won't meet a guy who's more compassionate about people that have needs, that, and I'm talking about immediate needs. In this country, people should not be without food. They should not be without warmth when it's cold. They should not be without, basic necessities. Children should not be hungry. All of those things. Not in the greatest nation on the planet, folks. So we've allowed our welfare system to be, drugged through the mud. It doesn't really help the people that truly need the help. So when I say I'm getting rid of welfare as we know it, you better bet your sweet butt I am. I'm going to crumple it up and throw it right in the garbage can and replace it with what I call the individual assistance program. which is when Mary in Asheville, Tennessee says, not says, but finds herself in a situation, Jim, I'm telling you, there will be a door for her to knock on where she can get immediate help. But she's not going to go to that door, knock on it, and get a lifetime worth of help.
Sure.
Okay? That's why I say a lot of this stuff needs to be sent back to the states to handle because, like I said, what's better for your people that live in Wisconsin, and I know what's better for people that live in New York, and, and Bob knows what's good for people in Tennessee. But to try to blanket the country with policies and programs that were never intended, when they talked about providing for the common good in our Constitution for the federal government, no way did they envision this welfare program. I mean, when he took office, there was something like 22 million people that were on public assistance. Now it's something, you could correct me if I'm wrong, somewhere between 45 and 50 million people on it. How's that possible?
Yeah, there's 47, it's fine. I'm a numbers guy, so there's 47% of the American populace right now that is receiving some form of government assistance.
Right.
Now that could be now that what's in that number though could be that they are lumping in Social Security and things of that nature, but still,
But what I'm saying is, listen, you and I sitting at our kitchen table, I'm talking about you and I could sit down and come up with a better program for helping people than what we've got right now. I mean, every one of my policies are just my thoughts, and I think that they're well thought out. But that doesn't mean that you don't have a thought and that Joey doesn't have a thought. In other words, we will come up with the best solutions for the American, way of life that we're trying to, basically we're trying to save. So as far as my flat tax, the concept there is that everybody needs to pay their fair share. Whether it's a percentage or whatever it is. I'm just simply saying there's too many people that are paying for too many other people. Everybody needs to start paying their fair share. And from corporations right on down to, from corporations right down to every American citizen. We all need to pay our fair share.
Yeah.
And right now we're being taxed on every possible conceivable thing that we do in our life, and that's got to stop.
Well, I'm a firm believer. I agree with you 100% on that. Is that be it if you are getting government assistance, that was the one thing that kind of shocked me. I went through the thing. I literally was in a position that because of the sequestration and then the impending shutdown of government, I was given my pink slip, and with Obamacare, first I was told I had to get my own insurance, and then about 3 weeks after that, I was told, hey, look, the government hasn't paid their contracts and everything, so we can't use you anymore. So I was looking at, going to the unemployment, and I was looking at all the rules, with unemployment, and I was thinking at the same time, I was like, well, wait a minute, people that get welfare checks, is there mandatory check-ins? Is there mandatory sheets that they have to fill out that say that they're going to school or they're bettering themselves or they're, and it was crazy. And then, I remember sitting there with the unemployment lady because I live in one state but was working in another in Illinois. I live in Wisconsin but was working in Illinois, so I had to actually deal with the and she was telling me, oh yeah, you have to come down if you don't get a job, and every month you have to come down for job training, and and I'm like, I'm a professional, and I don't understand, and I'm going there going.
But when I get rid of, and I'm literally, when I say get rid of, I mean, I intend to shut down a tremendous amount of the bureaucracies in Washington. I think we've got some number between 3.5, 4 million in federal workers. Now, the $1 million question is, well, then now you've just put, 2 or 3 million people out of work. That's not true, because I'm also believe that, capitalism is alive and well in the United States. And when we start talking about creating jobs, I mean, those people, you should be able to, Jim, you should be able to go from one job to the next. Okay, there should be plenty of jobs in this country once we start making things again.
Yeah.
We can't rebuild our infrastructure if we don't make things here. We can't profit. We can't rebuild this nation financially if we buy everything from overseas. We can't do it anymore.
Well, I mean,
and so we need to start making things here.
we see it right here.
The United States created the steel industry. Now we barely even make any of it here.
Yep.
But it's going to take a lot of steel over the next 15, 20 years to rebuild this nation, and that's, there'll be plenty of jobs once we make a conscious decision as a nation to survive, to rebuild our economy.
Well,
we've been rebuilding everybody's economy around the world. We got to stop doing that and rebuild our own.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I mean, it's frustrating and everything. And I, reading your bio, I know that you in your bio it said that you had a successful computer company, and in technology in the United States, you talk about sensible immigration. They grant over 250,000 technology visas. And I've got friends who are technology guys, and they can't find jobs. And they haven't been able to find jobs for the last year and a half to 2 years. But then
the whole concept of, well, we can get it cheaper overseas. Well, of course you can. You got to ask yourself this too. What does cheaper mean? Is cheaper a good thing if you're destroying your country in the process? No, it's not a good thing. And those countries will do just fine with whatever it is that they're doing over there. We've got to bring it back to the USA, okay? And one other thing, Jim, about my flat tax thing is right now I posted an article on my page the other night where KMC, some sort of a drug company, agreed to a settlement of something like $37 million fine. Well, what the article didn't say was that they probably profited $1 billion. So for them to offer a $37 million settlement seems like a big deal, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But what about the other $750 million that they, put in their pockets or put in their shareholders' pockets? America, wake up. We're being raped and robbed at every turn, not only by our politicians, but by these giant corporations that essentially own our politicians. And it's not ever going to stop it's not ever going to stop if we keep doing things the way that we're doing. I hate to bring up his name because what's the point? But, Ross Perot back in the 90s, basically, when he came to town and said, look, I've had enough of all the establishment, business as usual. We need to change this. We need to put the American citizen front and center. Everything that we do should be to better their life, not better somebody else's life, not some other nation. Those nations are nations because they're their own sovereign country. They can do whatever they want to do, okay? We've got to stop worrying about the rest of the world in regards to nation building and propping up other countries and things like that. I don't want to sound like an isolationist because I'm not. I still want people to come here. I still want them to feel welcome. But we are America. We have a flag. We have a constitution. If you want to come here and participate in the American way, great. But you've got to renounce your flag. You've got to renounce your culture. This is the United States of America. This is how we do things, okay? We're not going to change the way we do things just because you think we should. Do we even want to touch on Christianity? Do we want to do on religion? Do we want to talk about the Muslim faith? The beautiful thing about America is that if you are a Muslim and you're an American citizen, you're free to worship whoever you want. But you got to understand something. So am I. Okay? And if my grandson wants to pray over his lunch, I want him to do so without fear of being arrested or being thrown out of school. If my grandson wants to wear an American flag T-shirt to school, I want him to do so without being in fear of being thrown out of school, and then making me come down there and have to deal with it. I mean, what if we've become a nation where if somebody has a problem with something, then the rest of us have to suffer? Listen, you know something, buddy? We can talk about numbers, we can talk about jobs, we can talk about everything we want under the sun. None of that is going to amount to a hill of beans if we don't get back to our core beliefs in this country. And we can do it because I know that there's 115 million patriotic American citizens out there that are listening right now that are going to stand up on November 8th, 2016 and say, you know what? We're going to take our country back. Because, guys, once we have control of our country and our government again, then we can right a lot of the wrongs that have been done. Listen, it's not going to happen any other way. We can complain and bitch about all the stuff that's happening and until we're blue in the face. But until we retake our country back at the ballot box and seat people in our federal government and in our state governments and our local governments that are not looking at things from a foreigner's perspective and start looking at them from an American's perspective, then we're going to have problems because it's only going to get worse. And if we can't do it this go-around, I'm fearful that there won't be another go-around. There will not be another go-around.
Oh, I'm scared to death of what's coming down into 2016.
Absolutely. You know. So my point there in that last segment, what I was just saying was, it doesn't matter a hill of beans what happens right now because we can't change it. They're going to do what they're going to do, buddy. There's nothing we can do about it. We have got to unite. We have got to get together on this stuff because, listen, the pro-lifers, the pro-choicers, all that stuff's great, but the underlying thing there is that the government and the people that are afraid of losing power, that's how they win, by dividing everybody. You know, putting everybody at odds with each other.
Yep.
Guys, I think we can all agree. And I'm talking to the Patriots now. Listen, remember what I said earlier. There's 50 million people who are going to vote for the Democrats. And they've already made up their mind, no matter what. And 50 million are going to vote for the Republicans, no matter what. They've already made up their mind. But what that does for the American patriotic citizen is it shuts them out of the process. Look, Republicans, nor Democrats, nor Libertarians, nor the Constitutional Party, none of them. It's the American citizen that matters. And the American citizen has to stand up and say, you know what? I want my country back. I want to be able to prosper. I want that pursuit of happiness to be available to me. Man, people are so angry right now. They're so lost right now, it just doesn't even make sense.
Well, and that's the thing is that, you know, and you're absolutely right, is the government, you know, it's one of these things where they keep us, because America's mad, but they don't know how to focus it. They know they're mad at the government, and so our government steps in and says, oh, you know, so let's fight with each other. You know, let's get them hating, and it's kind of weird because, you know, I saw the vitriol that was going on in the shutdown in C-SPAN, and I saw all of that and the name calling that was going back and forth. And then I shake my head today and go, it's all kabuki theater, because tomorrow they're all going to be getting on an airplane together and drinking and having a good time and stuff. So that tells me that was all, you know, that was all for show. I mean, that was all planned. I mean, someone raised a good point last week that all the signs, you know, the government is closed. They're like, the government can't print up signs overnight. They already had the signs printed up. So that was, you know, that's a good indication that this was all kabuki theater and play. And
it's all fabricated to keep the American people confused.
Yep.
So I've even gone, so I'm a big guy. I mean, I'm a proud man. I'm actually begging my fellow American patriots to open their eyes, to understand that the things that divide us right now are the things that can unite us. If you care, and I know that you do, come together. We can work this stuff out later. I'm talking about the details. You know, I think I've probably said something that you've probably never heard before. I said, here's my idea But I want your ideas also, and I want her ideas, and I want Bobby's in New Mexico's ideas, because when we bring those ideas together, we can come up with a solution that can pretty much all agree on. You know, there are some things that in life that, you know, you're just headstrong on, and I get that. But is it worth it to lose your country over? Okay? And what are we basically talking about here? You know, there's lots of examples of things that we may or may not agree on, but the beauty of it is we can agree to disagree. But again, none of that stuff matters. We have got to come together as a nation and retake our federal, state, and local governments. You know, property taxes in many, I'd probably say all communities, they're so debilitating. I mean, you can't escape them. But then you see this MRAP vehicle show up in Culpeper, Virginia. I mean, it's wonderful, isn't it? It's beautiful. And it was free, supposedly. But somebody brought up a good point earlier. Well, who's going to pay for the maintenance on that thing? I happen to know what the maintenance on those things cost. And it's a lot more than about 1,500 people paying property taxes. I guarantee you that.
Well, when, you know, I talk to local law enforcement, they don't even have a budget for ammunition. They can't even train, you know, and you're right, just to turn the engine on that thing, you know, these
are just the lunacy in our politics and our policies. They just don't make any sense. And so why would we continue that process in the next election cycle? You know, even this election cycle coming up next year, I mean, I don't think there's time enough to organize enough to really effectuate change. But so what I tell people is, let this next election cycle in 2014 be the example, because watch what happens. We're going to lose 5 on one side and we'll gain 5 on the other, but then we'll lose 5 on the other and gain 5 on the next. In other words, we'll end up right back with the same recipe for sausage.
That was actually an awesome analogy there.
Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm laughing. I'm laughing. You're still gonna have, at the end of the process, you're still gonna have sausage.
So let the 2004 cycle go through, and just, you know, and watch MSNBC and Fox and all the rest of them. You know, I mean, is it that important to predict what the outcome is? Why don't we just wait another 5 minutes and see what the actual outcome is? You know, I did a segment last night on on the media and the fact that it's one giant entertainment, you know, complex. It's not the news that we grew up with, you know, Walter Cronkite and stuff like that, when he actually cried on television and you knew they were real tears. You see guys crying today, and you know, these are actors. Just tell me the news. I don't really want to hear what you have to say about it. Just tell me what the news is, you know. And so the American people's just not getting. They're not getting the truth. They're not getting the whole picture. They're getting whatever's going to sell the most ratings, and that's a shame.
Well, that's a shame. Yeah, no, and you're correct. I mean, that's one of the goals here at the Midnight Patriot, is that we report on the news, and it is what it is. And, you know, we're not, you know, corporate funded, obviously, and we never will be. We're always going to be community funded. People, if I'm doing a good job and people believe in what I'm doing, they're gonna help us and right. Everything. And that's the
but
way
even still, I mean, you know, think about a future here in America where, you know, like we're talking about stuff right now, and we're, you know, a lot of it is, you know, we're assuming a lot of things, because do we really truly have all the information? Like, for example, when they shut down the open air monuments in D.C., for example, like who made that decision? Was it the National Parks Director guy? I mean, did you see that guy?
Well,
I mean, he's about as American hating as you can get.
Well, exactly. I mean, did you see his testimony?
He's the one that made the decision. I mean, he just woke up one morning and said, you know what, I'm going to go spend twice as much on all these barricades and cables and armed guards or whatever they are, and do this. I mean, he had to get authority from somewhere.
Oh no, he did. He did actually, and this is what you know. This is the truth that we try to show, is that right. There was when they did the sequester. government or Congress came together and they put together a policy manual of what would happen if there was a shutdown, and what it's basically a how-to. And if you listen to the Senate testimony, when the senators were all sitting there going, "Who gave you the authority? Why did you do that?" He goes, "I was reading the playbook that you gave me." And that's basically what he was saying. He goes, "You guys gave me the rules, and I was following the rules." It's kind of like, you know, when ISA was there with the NSA, and the classic thing: "Are you spying on American soldiers or American citizens?" And the CIA director looks dumbfounded, and you know, you see that on YouTube. And the reason why he seemed dumbfounded was the fact that ISA is part of the, you know, of course the committee that oversees the NSA and the CIA, and he was given briefs. You know, he's been given briefs all along saying this is the government policy. So it wasn't that he would the CIA director was dumbfounded that he got asked a question. He's dumbfounded because he's like, well, wait a minute. And I know what's going at that point when you know the truth. You know, what I would be doing is going, well, you're the one that signed the policy, so why are you asking me the question? You know the answer.
Well,
but
it was like with Congressman Gowdy or whatever, Representative Gowdy from wherever, South Carolina, North Carolina, or wherever. He was asking a National Park guy, you know, when the Occupy Wall Street people in D.C. and New York and everywhere were camping out for weeks and months at a time, he didn't shut them out. He didn't put gates around those, which they had, you know, then they didn't throw them out of the parks, you know, like and stuff like. So why did they choose to do that for veterans and on our open air monuments in D.C. during this shutdown?
Yeah.
You know, and he didn't really have an answer for that, even though that may have been the policy, but he had some discretion, you know, so.
Yeah, he could have used some. You're absolutely, well, I mean, the biggest issue that I had, well, I mean, let's forget about, you know, the policy and stuff. Let's look at the reality that happened. You had an organization, you know, you had the vets that show up on the Angel flights, and they weren't allowed in. But then you had immigration, which is obviously something that's near and dear to the president's heart and stuff, and they're allowed they opened the mall up to allow them to protest. So, you know, it's just, it's one of these things that, you know, and then you have directors, you know, you had individuals that said that they were told specifically to make it as difficult as possible. Even with the sequestration that went on prior to all of this, you know, there were letters and emails coming out of the White House that was telling, because a lot of agencies said, you know what, we could actually work. I think it was Fish and Wildlife came back and said, well, actually, we could still work under the sequestration. You know, it's not going to affect quality, or it's not going to, you know, affect fisheries. And they immediately got an email from the White House, from one of the administration, the White House, that said, you know, be quiet. Don't say that. Make it sound like things are, you know, the sky is falling. And
so, I mean, what else does the American citizen need to know? I mean, they're playing games with your life, and at the same time, they're destroying your way of life. Listen, folks, you know, and I've said it, and I'll say it from the loudest rooftops, and I plan on being everywhere in this country over the next 3 years. So you'll get a chance to ask me and look me straight in the eye. The simple fact that America has a constitution, and we have a way of life that we're used to. And, you know, change is not always bad, but it's not always good either, especially when you're being forced to do it. I can't say not everybody. Me personally, you know, I believe that America was made up of, great people from all over the world, okay? But we've already done that, and we're already a great nation. And, you know, you're welcome to come here. But we have a way of doing things. This is our way of life. If you're coming here for a better life or a better way of life, this is what we have to offer. If you don't like it, it's not your job, or it's not your right to try to change that. Okay? Only we can change that. And I'm talking, when I say we, the American citizens. If we decide that we don't want red, white, and blue on our flag, then we can decide as a nation to change it to green, yellow, and orange if we want. Okay? That's our right to do so. But for you to come here and demand, that we fly your flag at the same time we fly our flag, and then you get mad at us when we fly our flag with your flag, that just inherently that's wrong. We can't allow that to happen. We need to stop being so damn nice, and we need to start getting a little bit tougher on our immigration and our illegal alien problem. I don't know if you read or not in my thing there. It's one thing to say we don't want illegals here. We want people to come here, but we want them to do it the right way. Okay, we want them to learn English. We want them to pledge allegiance to our flag. We want them, blah blah blah. It doesn't do us any good if we don't secure our borders. Okay, so part of my plan to stop spending incredible amounts of money overseas is to bring back to the United States our armed forces, our Army, our Air Force, and our Marines. I mean, I'm going to leave the Navy out there floating all over the world. I'm going to leave them out there with submarines and stuff like that to protect, our national interests and basically our borders. But you talk about creating jobs. I'm going to build new Army and Air Force and Marine bases all along our borders, okay? I mean, how better to protect a border than to put, military bases along it? Now, listen. Over in New Mexico, in the southern part of New Mexico, there's an Air Force base. I don't know if you're aware of that. You know what the Air Force base I'm talking about?
Trying to think. No. Which one?
Okay. That's a Green Air Force base right along the southern border there of New Mexico. When all the illegals were coming across and up into Arizona and stuff like that, you never heard anything about New Mexico because there's an Air Force base there, and there's big giant fences all the way around it. Okay, and so why not continue that all the way across the border? I mean, we need to train our military. We need operations here in America. We don't need all these bases all over the world. Okay, we don't need to be paying Turkey $100 billion a year for a piece of sand. Okay, so on the off chance that we might need to land a plane there, we've got aircraft carriers for that kind of stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. No, I agree with you. I'm a firm. I sit back and I have this intellectual debate with myself. If I was president, conversation I would say, and the first thing I would do is, you're absolutely right. I would bring every troop home, and then I would make it.
I mean, we can deploy within 72 hours
anywhere
in this world. I mean, that's what we train for. That's what that's what our military leaders, the leaders that are left, are telling us. Why are we gutting our military, top brass? Why is that happening and nobody's talking about that?
Well, we lost 2 more today. So.
Do you know how many decades it takes to truly become a great, a mind, a thinker in a military manner? It just doesn't happen overnight.
Yep. And like I said, we lost 2 more today. 2 more top generals.
Who'd we lose?
They were Air Force generals.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Are those nuclear guys?
No, we have 2 more on top of those.
Oh, geez.
And stuff. So we're up to.
If anything else alarms the American people, you need to be alarmed by that because, I mean, who's going to be running our military?
Well,
inexperienced, folks that got promoted by Obama, who obviously hates America and hates Americans. I mean, what's going on with that?
Well, I can tell you flat out, the don't ask. I have a lot of friends who are Marines, and being close to Great Lakes Naval Station and stuff. They gave up their commissions. They left. They took the retirement, and their number one reason is that the contract that they signed with the armed services is no longer valid because don't ask, don't tell. And they did. We have lost. Not only have we lost, top brass.
Yeah, the military is not a place to do a social experiment.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. All across this nation.
Yeah.
Electing a community organizer and the first black president and stuff like that. I mean, these social experiments are turning out to be social nightmares. And I'm not educated enough in the don't ask, don't tell policy to know if that's helping, hurting, or whatever. But I know that
Well,
I just don't think our military is the place to experiment with things that we don't know what the known outcome is. When I was in the service, I don't know if you served, Jim, or not, but when I was in the service, I mean, it was black and white. I mean, it was just the way, you had a way of doing things, and you trained on that. So therefore, you didn't question yourself after the fact. There seems to be a lot of that going on right now. Is that because my son was in the service? He's out now, and he says, "Pop, you know what? It's I wanted to do 20, but I couldn't. I couldn't deal with all the politics."
Well, you have now.
And I thought to myself for a second, because my son is me. I mean, he basically thinks the way I do, and we, and this type of thing. And here's a young guy who would have been great for this country, but he just didn't see himself working in that system that's there right now. So I get that. I mean, I get that our military, is still obviously the most. Well, I don't know, the greatest on the planet. But what's it going to look like 10 years from now or 20 years from now?
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing is that we are a voluntary, still a voluntary army, and or
I mean, the funny thing is, 25 years ago, we had Iraqi soldiers in our unit. I mean, they were Iraqi nationals that were training in our units, and we didn't necessarily think anything of it. We thought, okay, it's a joint exercise. They're here to train just like anybody else, and I'm not sure why I brought that up, but I'm saying we didn't. When orders came down from the top, you didn't question them. You just thought, okay, somebody smarter than me has made a decision. I trust their decision, and I'm gonna motor forward.
Yep.
I can't imagine myself in the service right now trying to figure out where these orders are coming from and why, because a lot of them probably don't make a lot of sense.
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, I talk on a daily basis with people in the military, and like I said, in boot camp you have timeout cards now. And it's just unbelievable. Can you imagine being in boot and, oh, I'm sorry, you hurt my feelings, here's my timeout cards. Now, the DIs that I know at the Naval State, here at Great Lakes, they said what they do is the first time you flash the timeout card, it's amazing. All the DIs, you're only given so many. It's not like you can do that. So what they do is that for the
when
first
I heard
week,
about that timeout card, man,
yeah.
I nearly fell on the floor laughing. I couldn't believe.
Yeah, I get to go to the quiet room.
Being a trainee at the time, and even wanting to take a timeout. I mean, there were times, when I was like, oh, I can't do this anymore. But to actually have a card that I could say, leave me alone, I'm stressing.
Yeah.
What the hell is that?
Yeah, no, it's funny because your DIs are smarter than that, and they just gang up on you for the first week, and you burn your timeouts, and you go on and you become a soldier. So I mean, you're right. I mean, the military. I'm a firm believer of that. The last thing you ever want to see off of your shores is the United States military and the Navy, and they should be the last resort. And unfortunately, a lot of people, they blame Reagan or they blame President Bush and all this for the wars. But if you look at it, Madam Albright even said that the President Clinton was a war hawk. She specifically called him that and said that he used the threat of the United States military in every one of his negotiations with foreign powers. Yeah, I'm a little bit different than that. I'm like I said, that military. And when I said, if I was president, I had that conversation. If I send the military in your country, we own your country. It's not a matter of we're going to give it back to you. If I have to send my military in there, when it's all said and done, there will be an American flag flying over your capital. And
wait, let me ask you this question though. Let's say that we went and let's just, for example, let's say that some country invaded Kuwait. Let's say Iraq invaded Kuwait. Let's just say that hypothetically that happened, and it cost us. Let's just use a round number. Let's say it cost us $500 billion to do that. Should we send a bill to Kuwait for saving their asses?
It depends.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. Number one,
then once we've taken Iraq out like we did, I mean, then we should basically put a lien on their country and on their oil until the $500 billion is paid back.
I agree, but the thing is, too, what upsets me about this is that we are in there defending countries that don't like us. They burn our flags. They, burn effigies of the president, which, they do all, and Allah Akbar to American down, whatever they do to the American people. They don't like us, but yet we feel compelled to go over there and bail them out.
No. I'm not talking, listen, what I'm saying is if one of our friends in the world, for, Israel or, at the time Kuwait, I think Turkey's on our side, England, all of our allies. Now keep it, we got to be a good neighbor in the world, okay? And we will, obviously our treaties, we can't just undo our treaties that have been in place for, 100 years or whatever. But, if somebody invaded England, we're going to have to come to their aid. I mean, that's
sure.
Would you disagree with that?
Oh, absolutely. Any NATO country, absolutely. We would.
Right.
We would
but
be
why
there
should
next
it
day.
cost the American taxpayers to go and free England from whatever tyranny or invasion that took place? In other words, England, you have a decision to make. You're either going to pay us what it costs us to do this, or you're just going to have to live under that other country's flag. I mean, we can't keep spending our treasure around this world like it's unlimited, because it's not unlimited, okay?
Sure.
I mean, when we pull out of Afghanistan and Iraq for good, you know how much military equipment we're going to leave behind?
Oh,
just like we did in the first Gulf War?
We got military bases there. We're leaving, just stockpiles.
Exactly.
I'm talking to friends, yeah.
And so, to me, that just doesn't make any good sense. I mean, you just don't, but somebody's got to pay for that. And why should I and why should you pay for something like that? The other country's the one that got the benefit of it, so why shouldn't they ante up?
Sure. Well, the oil,
it's a matter of dollar and cents. It's not a question of what's right and wrong. I mean, obviously, we don't want, our friends in England or our friends in Israel or our friends in, Turkey or wherever to be, invaded and being tortured and stuff like that. No, that's not what we're all about. But I'm saying there's a cost associated with doing business, and it's a business transaction, right?
Sure. Well, and the thing is, though, is that the American people might not be being paid back, but the corporations who are benefiting from the oil and pumping the oil out of the ground. I mean, you've got BP over there, you got Shell over there, you got all those corporate they're getting the protection of our military services. And they're getting the profits from once we kick whoever's in there's butts out.
Yeah, but I'm saying.
But
so the taxpayers should pay so that they can keep pumping oil, or they can, no.
But if I am correct, when we originally went into Kuwait, part of the sell to the American people is that they would repay us with oil, or that we would get oil.
How'd that work out?
Yeah.
$4 a gallon?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so you don't trust. I mean,
who made that deal? Obviously, the politicians. So therefore, what more do you need to know? Listen, guys, we get screwed at every turn.
Yep.
Sometimes you smile and you think it's okay, but it's really not. It's war is not something that we should, look at lightly and without a lot of thought. Okay, and cost needs to be one of the factors. We can't afford to keep doing this. We just can't keep doing it.
Yep.
Iran's going to have a nuke pretty soon. North Korea's already got it. But the bottom line is that a national security threat to us? I don't know. On the surface it sounds like it, but I don't think that North Korea could shoot a nuclear bomb and hit us in the United States. Do you?
I believe I think the last ballistic, Hawaii or Guam.
Okay. Well, then, we need to fortify our, I guess from there would be our Western Front, and we have to make sure that we can't allow that to happen. But just short of going over there and annihilating any nuclear remnants, of any type of, what are we going to do about it? In other words, we're going to poop or get off the pot.
Yeah, make a decision.
We don't want Iran to have a nuclear bomb, and we need to just prevent them from having one, period. Stop talking about it.
Yep.
It seems like it's been, 15 years since George Bush was in office? Or not since he was in office, but when he took office, and we were talking about Iran having a nuclear bomb then.
Yep. And actually today, I mean, apparently there's a back deal done with the administration where we're going to give Iran some of their, we seized a lot of their assets, and we're going to give some of that back to them. And they're going to promise us that they're not going to build a nuclear bomb.
That sounds like a real good plan. I mean, I don't trust it if Obama's involved in it, because it's obviously not going to help the American citizens. It's only going to help, the Iranians. But my point there is they keep, the news keeps reporting that, Iran is 6 months away from having this and 1 year away from having this. Well, that, it's been many, many years that they've been 6 months away from having something. So which is it? Is it just to keep building up the military-industrial complex and the Halliburtons of the world? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and you truly, I mean, I have my suspicions. I think it's part and parcel that, keep America. Think about it. When you had the fall of the Soviet Union, you didn't have, the great, our great enemy of America. You didn't have it anymore. Russia was not a threat, and so
Right.
You have to, the military complex, like a government, is an animal upon itself. I mean, we were warned.
Right.
Eisenhower warned us of it. I mean, the classic speech and everything about the military complex, and so they created an enemy. And
Right. Well, we essentially, I think, in this country, because of the condition and state that we're in, we just need to put the brakes on things for a while. And start to reassess a lot of the things that we're doing. And, I make statements like, the first 24 hours we're going to do this, first 24 hours we're going to do that. If I don't have a Congress that I can work with, and in other words, if it's, if there's not a lot of American citizens that are actually in it, because all the president can do is really, recommend for the Congress's consideration. That's all he can do. But I would like to think that I would present things to them that they could actually, look at and go, okay, that makes sense. Let's do that. But I mean, you got a Congress right now that's divided on seemingly everything. I don't even know what a Democrat is anymore as opposed to Republican. They all seem like they're part of the. They ought to come up with a new name for it. Some party name that because they're all jumbled together. I mean, I wouldn't hire Nancy Pelosi to watch my kids, much less create policy for my country. You follow what I'm saying?
Oh, I'm with you. I say that I and I know her history.
I mean, Harry Reid.
Yeah.
I mean, I spent some time out west a couple of years ago, and I mean, these big pieces of plywood that said, do not vote for Harry Reid. So I thought, okay, this is cool. We can finally get rid of this guy, and then he wins. I mean, how did that happen? The guy is useless. I mean, literally useless. You listen to him speak, and nothing seems to come out of his mouth that's, useful.
Well, you're right.
Unless they're giving something away.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, I'm in Major League Baseball, the industry here. I get to stay at home and watch news and learn and everything because this is my job. And I watch C-SPAN, and I listen to these, these leaders, these supposed leaders on the floor as they're arguing and doing, and I'm like, are you really?
Right.
There used to be a time when I was younger where you would look at politicians and think that they were your best and your brightest, and you would look at them and go, wow, if this is the best, we're in trouble. Because I listened to them. I mean, there's one congresswoman who, is highly educated, has the degrees on the walls, and she could not put. Now I have a hard time putting sentences together because my mind is running so quick, and I'm already into the next topic, and that's something that I'm working on. But the thing is she couldn't put sentences together. It was demeaning. It was completely.
Right. Well, how about we go back to a situation where you listen, and I'm a big proponent of this too. And at the bottom of every one of my pages and policies, I basically say, listen, I may not have all of the answers, okay,
Sure.
But I tell you what, the key thing in everything that I will do is going to be taking the American citizens' best interest at heart, okay, and I don't see how you can go wrong with that. If it's in the best interest of the American citizens to do something, and we can put together a group that can effectuate that and can make that happen, I don't see how we can go wrong. I just do not see how we can go wrong.
Sure.
I think, like I said earlier, the things that divide us seem to be the things that can unite us. Immigration, religion, taxes, all of those issues. I can't imagine somebody standing up on a platform and going, I'm going to continue taxing you, the way you've been taxed, even though I know it's painful to you. I know we're $100 trillion in debt, and I think life would be better if we were $150 trillion in debt. Well, I can guarantee you this. I'm sure the persons that I'm going to be running against next time are going to be Hillary Clinton and Jesse Ventura and maybe Ted Cruz, and who knows, maybe Alan West will get back in the thing. I look forward to debating with him, because anybody that's been in politics before or currently, how can you stand there with a straight face, answer questions that the whole world knows that you're lying, and do it with a straight face? And then you've got Stone standing over there going, "Yeah, I'm not going to let you get away with that." Yeah. Hillary Clinton, I'm not going to answer a damn question you've got for me until you answer one for me. And that is, how do you feel about yourself having been on national television and saying to the American people, who cares? They're dead.
Yeah.
And you want to be the leader of the American people? Who cares? They're dead.
Yeah, what difference does it make? Yeah.
Now, I'm paraphrasing.
No, I know. I'm with you.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yep.
How can you stand here and say you've got the American citizens' best interest at heart when you could care less if 4 of their citizens were killed, and you won't provide the information that's required so that we understand what happened?
Yep.
Now, listen, I blame that whole thing on Barack Obama. I blame him giving the orders to our military to stand down, et cetera, et cetera. I'm sure that Hillary was put in an impossible position, and for that I'm terribly sorry. But here's your opportunity now, Mrs. Clinton. Tell the world what the hell happened.
Yep. Yeah,
you're not going to get fired. You don't work for him anymore.
And she could get.
Happened?
It would gain her so much credibility with the American people. So don't think that it might not happen. I think there's rumblings going on right now with her and Biden are fighting over that exact deal. Even they were talking about her and Biden were fighting over the fact that about Osama bin Laden.
Well,
she came out and
said something important a little while ago, and you said something about our best and brightest. And it's funny because obviously you and I think a lot, and I'm enjoying the hell out of this conversation, by the way, but the simple fact that as you look to the east, to Washington, and you ask, is this really the best we have to offer? Are these people and the players that are involved? Is this really representative of the American people? Well, I stand tall and I say absolutely not. And I'd say that to the world. This is not the very best and brightest that we've got in this country.
Well,
the best and brightest in this country is yet to be heard from, but you will hear from them on November 8th, 2016.
Absolutely.
Because this country will come back to being a great country again, because what made it great was its citizens.
Yes.
Okay? The idea was wonderful, but it was the citizens that made it great. They're the ones that did all the hard work. They're the ones that will continue to do the hard work, and in the future will rebuild this nation.
Yep.
Period. End of story.
I agree. This is the one thing that I don't understand. I've gone, being a business owner myself and stuff, I've gone several years. I can't remember the last time I've actually, I can tell you, the last time I took a vacation was Sandy and I went to Topsail Island. It was about 10 years ago. That was our last really true vacation, without being like a Christmas or anything, but like a day off. I've always said, if I was president of the United States, my butt would be in that Oval Office for the full 4 years. No vacations.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, but I would take it one step further. And if you've listened to some of my other interviews that I've done and some of the writings that I've done, now keep in mind, I used to live in Washington, D.C. up until about 3 months ago. I decided to move to New York because I wanted to run my campaign outside of the shadow of D.C. D.C. has become a fortress. The White House has become a fortress that's not penetrable unless you've got, $100 million in your pocket, okay? It's not accessible to the people anymore. I envision myself in being just a common guy. Obviously, we need security for people, and maybe I would need security because people want to. There's evil in the world, but you don't have to close out the American people to the point where there's zero access. I even joked about it, but I'm very serious about it. The phone that I'm calling you on right now, I will have this phone when I'm president, and there'll be an hour a week that the American citizens can call in and actually talk to me. Now, obviously, in an hour's time, we may only get maybe 2 or 3 phone calls in, but just the chance of the fact that I will be accessible like that is something unique, and that seems to resonate with the supporters that I've got right now. Which, by the way, I mean, we've got several hundred, if not 1,000 or so people out there right now that are talking about Stone Anthony and his ideas and the things that he wants to do, and this thing has only been alive for 2 weeks. Okay, yeah. I decided to do this about 5 months ago, but went public with it 2 weeks ago, and it's taken off like better than I had imagined. So I know the American people are out there, and they've had enough, and we're gonna do something. And I'm not just doing this because I've got something to say. I'm doing this because America needs it. America needs to regain its pride again. And have you seen the graphics out there where people say, "I love my country, but I'm ashamed of my government," or something along those lines?
I see it all the time. I mean, when I'm on Facebook, yeah. I look at them and I'm like,
it's horrible. I can't imagine 20 years ago, people saying something like that. It's just amazing that it's just so prolific now. It's everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, people are just. I mean, even people like you said, there's a certain segment that is going to vote one way or the other. I mean, I got you no matter what. I mean, you could put,
right.
They're going to vote either way. And when we put this show together, we're going after that segment that's on the, they, like I said, if you hear our show and stuff, you go to work and you talk to them, or you go wherever you're at and you talk to them, and they'll admit to you that something's wrong. But the problem is they're brainwashed, the media, and they're just like, as long as I can get through today, I don't care what goes on over there. And those are the people that we target with our show. And it's amazing. You listen and I see that, and it's sad. It's depressing. It's just sad, the fact that we do live in the greatest. I mean, think about how great this country is. With all of the vitriol that's going on, with all of the problems that's going on, there is no other country that I would live in other than the United States. And I've traveled the world, so I've had an opportunity to see firsthand. I still love this country, and I'm still going to live here. Sure. And and it's not like I can get in my little sailboat and go and find a new continent. This is it. This is all we got. So we got to make it work.
I can't imagine wanting to go anywhere else.
Exactly.
I mean, there have been times when I've been frustrated and go, man, can this get any worse? I mean, I suppose that it could, but I tell you what, Jim. I mean, I'll challenge you right now. My message to the American patriots is unity. Okay, yeah. You and I talking on the phone. I mean, we've been on the phone for an hour and a half to almost 2 hours.
Almost 2 hours, yeah.
There's not very many things that divide us. Nope. Okay, our hearts and our minds are in the right direction. It's to bring back the greatness in this country. So my challenge is to you. Let's join forces. Let's be a voice that people can resonate to, and that can follow along, because this next 3 years is going to be a journey that's going to be hard. It's going to be harsh. It's going to be difficult. But I would say to people, don't worry. We're on our way.
Help is on the way.
Hold out a little bit longer.
Yeah.
We will save this country.
What do I do?
Be strong and stand with us.
What?
And let's work together. I mean, that's what I'm asking everybody. Let's work together. Let's put together a slate of officers that can, when I say officers, I'm thinking corporate, put together a slate of, a ballot that people can look at and understand, and no hanging chads and all this other crap. It's simply, we are for the American citizens and what is going to make their life prosper, give them a clear path to that pursuit of happiness that we all have heard about, that when we mention it, we get looked at funny. That thing called the U.S. Constitution. I've heard rumblings from our government that maybe it's an outdated document.
Oh, our Supreme Court Justice Ginsburg. Yeah, no,
outdated document.
Ginsburg.
Really? Okay.
Ginsburg sat there in South Africa.
If that were the case, then why aren't they disbanding the Supreme Court? Because see, the Supreme Court is there for the sole purpose of, upholding the Constitution.
Yeah.
Any issue that comes before it, the Constitution is the test.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, this is the problem.
So,
Stone, can you hear me? I didn't know. No, I was going to stop you there. The problem with your statement is that Ruth Ginsburg, who's Supreme Court Justice Ruth Ginsburg, when she was asked in South Africa, a lot of these Supreme Court justices have homes outside of the United States, and when she was in South Africa, she was specifically asked, what's the best constitution? And her response was the South African Constitution. I'm sorry. You're the,
that should have been grounds. I mean, when you talk about truly impeaching somebody, if there was video evidence,
put it in. Yeah, there was. You Google it.
I'm just saying, if I were president of the United States and something like that were said, so help me God, that would be on my agenda to handle that day. She would be in my office. There would be a congressional committee put together, and she would be made to answer for that. That's treasonous.
Yeah, it is.
It
is.
And, but you see, I couldn't do that if I were being bought by some diamond mine in South Africa. You understand what I'm saying? I couldn't do that if I was bought and paid for by somebody that if I brought articles of impeachment or recommended it for one of their board of directors, who might be Ruth Bader Ginsburg, I wouldn't do that because I'm beholden to their money, right?
Exactly.
I mean, if we spend, listen, this is the funny thing, Jim. My budget for this entire campaign, at least, on paper, from what I think that we can get done, is probably going to be a couple of $1 million. Imagine that dwarfing to the billions that the others are going to spend. Billions!
Well, there is hope.
But I think we have a better chance of winning because you know what? Because we're going to be talking to the American people, and we're going to be saying to them, "Hey, come on board with us. We got your best interest at heart."
Well, the other. Let
me finish one thing. People ask me, Stone, if we vote for you, how do we know you won't forget about us? And you know what my answer to them is? You'll be standing right next to me, so you'll know what I'm doing. I mean, how do you argue with that? You can't.
You can't.
You still there?
Oh, I'm here. I'm here. I'm taking it in. I'm taking it all in because I'm sitting here. I've been preaching for the last 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. Get involved, and everybody's been saying, well, how do I get involved? And it's amazing. If you sit back long enough, and if you truly believe in something, it's going to materialize in front of you. And I'm just listening to what you're saying, and it's just amazing because now I have a way. Yeah, she's going to be telling us to get off the air here in a second. Let me make this announcement real quick, Stone. For those that are listening on Blog Talk Radio, if you can, when Blog Talk drops off in the 2 hours, another 2 minutes, you can switch over to our other feed, which is on Spreaker, but you can get to that through www.themidnightpatriot.com. That's themidnightpatriot.com, and then click on the live link there for all of you Blog Talk listeners. So I just wanted to get that out there, Stone, because she's going to start talking to me and telling me to, get off the air. So it's amazing.
Time is up. Well, finish your thought because it's important. Because what you were about to say before you started that, I think is important, which is, there are about and I could probably count them on every blade of grass in my front yard. There's that many different groups of people that all want the same thing. What I'm saying to all of those blades of grass or all of those groups, folks, focus, and obviously I'm trying to be that beacon or that center of the universe by putting my name in the ring and saying I would like to lead this movement. It's a call to duty. It's not something that I, ever thought that I would, do. But I know that I'm the man that can get it done because I'm not beholden to anybody. I've got my own opinions about things. I don't kowtow to anybody. Nobody can say something to me and intimidate me. And I think that's the kind of leader that the American people need right now. They need somebody that they can, what's the word I'm looking for, that they can, hey, he's just like me.
We can relate to.
We can relate to.
Yeah.
Exactly. And like I said, I mean, I've lived the American dream, the positive and the negative, man. I've been up, I've been down. I know what it's like to be hungry. I mean, I am, I guess, a model American citizen. But I am thinking what you're thinking, America, and I hope that I'm saying, things that you're hearing that are touching you, not only in your hearts but also in your minds. We can't continue the way we're going. We cannot continue to allow these entertainers in Washington to control us any longer. We've got to take it back. And
Sure.
And if we, the theme here is to unify and to get behind something. And I'm asking for you to get behind me and bring me your ideas. Let's partner. Let's figure this thing out together. Because if we don't, there is no one else that's going to do it.
Absolutely.
They'll just continue looking out for themselves. The old saying, how do you corrupt a politician? Well, you elect them. And that's sad. And if there ever was, a good politician, and I think there are a couple, like we mentioned, like Gowdy, I forget his first name, but I mean, he from Texas, maybe. He gives me hope that the American, system is going to be alive at least until November 8th, 2016, because he's not one to be talked over. He's not one to be pushed around. He speaks his mind, and he does not let up. And so he'll definitely have a place in my administration should he choose to do so. I've been desperately trying to get a hold of Alan West. I respect what he says. I just, I'd like to see him get a little bit more involved in the American citizens as opposed to his own, personal wealth growing and that kind of stuff. But I think there's still a decent guy there, served our country well. And, he has a way of mustering the troops. And I think that, we need to reach out to those kinds of people. And so anyway.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, my thing, I'm a listener. I've been listening to the show and stuff. You've got me. I'm hooked. What should I do next? What's the next steps? What does your administrator, your campaign group, what do you guys need? What do you need from us, the listeners?
Well, here's what we need, and it's very simple. Is we've got a petition on the website, stoneanthony2016.com. It's just a simple petition where you put your name in there and you sign it. The ability to get involved from that point is certainly up to you. In a sense of volunteering in your state to spread the word and the message about what we're all about. See, it's not complicated because it's about the American citizen. It's about what their needs are and what we can do. And so most people get that. I don't spend a great deal talking about why Musharraf, seemingly seemed to be on our side and an ally. I'm talking about Pakistan now, but then when we wanted to send, people across the mountains to get some Al-Qaeda, that, it was a crime. cares about that right now? We got people starving here in the United States. We've got veterans that are waiting to get their benefits. We've got people signing up for this health care plan that, seemingly is not a good thing. We got mothers that, single mothers that, lost their husbands and don't, and can't get help because they don't qualify. And I mean, there's just so many ills here in this country that we can all relate to, that unifying together, we can find solutions to help each other out. And
Sure.
So what do I need from you is to keep pushing the website, keep talking to people about the process, meaning we're simply trying to get into the process so we can participate. I can hold my own when it comes time to debating and this type of thing with the establishment. I'll go head to head with them, but I won't be able to do that if I can't muster up enough American citizens to get behind our ideas. You follow what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So, any chance you get, if you could keep mentioning us, I'm certainly going to put a link on our website to you guys. I'm going to put these interviews, assuming I can get the the recordings of them, I'll put them out to our people so they can hear them. But if people could stop, how should I put it? Because I don't want to kill the spirit, but what I want to say is focus on the things that we absolutely can get done, and the things that we can't, such as impeachment. There's a lot of energy and a lot of money would be wasted in that gallant effort. But the guy's gone in 3 years, folks.
Yep.
And I don't think there's a lot that we can do about that now to make that happen any sooner.
Sure.
Guys, it would take an act of Congress to do that. And Congress is, you see what kind of a mess Congress is. They're never going to do that. So to waste that energy, and I guess I hate to say that it's a waste of energy, but there's other things that we can do by talking to your community, going to your town hall meetings. We've got Second Amendment issues all over the place. And I'm surprised you didn't ask me about that tonight, but, that's one of the things I plan to put to rest when I become president is, the Second Amendment is not negotiable. It's there for a reason. And it's there in times like this. See, our government's afraid right now. Okay? But they're never going to get 300 million guns. It's just not going to happen.
Yep.
And the truth be told, I'm not a gun guy. I'm not a guy that, goes out and shoots every weekend or goes hunting or anything like that. But I absolutely respect the fact that there are American citizens that do, and they should be completely unhindered in their pursuit to do that. And the Second Amendment gives them that right to do it. So why are we even discussing it? What gives the right for any governmental body to decide something that's in our U.S. Constitution?
Well,
or to go contrary to something that's in our Constitution.
Yeah, if you went to the First Amendment and say you can't speak anymore, you don't have a right to. Well, they're doing that now. They have these.
Right.
Well,
but that's all baloney.
There's
not an American citizen that I'm aware of, meaning my circle of people, that their voice is their weapon, and nobody's going to take that away from me. It's baloney about even if you're across the street. The president has the power. I guess it was in the
they passed
some bill that was passed.
Yeah, they passed.
He has the power to deem that street something so that to suspend the First Amendment.
The way.
Folks,
Yep.
Your rights can't be suspended just because somebody says so.
Yeah, the way that
even if they pass a law, they can't pass a law that contradicts the Constitution. Your voice can be heard right up until the time that they put a knife in your heart, and you can't speak no more.
And that's really, that's the thing is the law that they pass is if there's Secret Service present, you can't protest.
Whatever.
Yeah, whatever. You're absolutely correct. And that's, and that's the thing that aggravates me.
Well, I was threatened by a Fairfax County police officer about 4 years ago, maybe 3.5 years ago, down at George Mason, the Patriot Center there in Fairfax. Obama was coming to speak, and he basically told the crowd, if you step off that curb, I will shoot you.
Yeah.
You know? And I thought, wow, what kind of country do I live in where police officers are going to threaten to shoot us if we step off a curb? I mean, just the simple act of stepping off the curb, you're going to shoot me? You wouldn't try to tackle me first?
Yeah. Tase me at least.
Your first thought is that you're going to shoot me?
Yeah. Well, you unfortunately,
I didn't step off the curb. I didn't really want to test his resolve, but I mean, he seemed pretty serious, and I can only assume that his orders came down from somebody above.
Well, there was a case. I mean, you hear it's funny. I remember when Obama was going through the election cycle. There in Tennessee, there was an older gentleman, and he's a farmer, and he had to get and they had the blockade, and he just drove through it, and they pulled him over, dragged him out, and they're like, "Why?" He's like, "I got work to do." He goes, "I ain't got time for this nonsense," And he's right. I mean, it's just you're right. I mean, we've gotten to the point now where common sense has just completely gone out the window, and everything.
Oh yeah.
So
well, I told you I rode down, and by the way, I rode down to D.C. in the rain with about 9 or 10 of my fellow bikers out there, and we got to D.C. and I got to tell you, man, it was just. You talk about making your heart just sing, Yankee Doodle Dandy. It was great. The park rangers, you could tell they were in an impossible position. Even most of the local police folks were just in an impossible position. But to see that park ranger, she shook every one of the Angel Flight veterans and greeted them. And greeted him coming down the ramp there into the World War II Memorial. It was just, there's some really good video footage out there of that happening, and it was just awesome to see, And I went up to her, and actually it was a him and a her, and I said, look, if you guys get fired over this, call me, and I'll bring everybody I know to your defense, because, clearly they were, not following orders as far as, keeping the monuments closed and that type of thing. So I hope nobody lost their job over that. At least I never got a phone call, so I'm hoping that they didn't.
Well,
last
week,
there's some good stuff happening right now.
Well, I was going to tell you, last week we had on the air, was it Jake? I can't think of his last name, from Iowa. He was actually on YouTube and several of the Heritage website, where he was the guy that actually broke down or dismantled the gate. It was a Saturday.
Right.
He dismantled the gate and led a group of people. He said it was 15 at first up to the Lincoln Memorial, and then it turned into 20. And 200. We had him on the air, and we were talking to him, and he was saying, it was amazing, because I asked him flat. I said, "How was the park rangers?" He said, "You know what? They were very pleasant. They were very nice." He said, "Obviously they were, they were scared. They were nervous." And then what happened was when they called in their backup and their backup showed up, he said that's when they got somewhat belligerent towards the crowd. It was, the one or two that were there were like, "Hey, go ahead, knock yourself out." I mean, what are you going to do against a crowd of 200 patriots? Not a whole lot, but when the supervisors showed up, and then when the force actually showed up, that's when they started to get a little mouthy, and they cleared the steps. And he sat there. He just sat down for. It's a great video. You got to go see it. He just sat down for 2 hours and just sat there. And they said, "You're going to jail. We're going to arrest you."
I saw that one. That was I saw that one. I'm talking about the day that we were there, which was on the 13th. Okay, it was Sunday.
You were Sunday.
Just 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago, when they took the gates and took them to the White House.
Yeah.
And threw
you guys threw it at the White House, as Rachel Maddow said.
What's that?
Rachel Maddow, you guys threw them, you hurled them at the White House, you terrorists.
Well, what I wanted to tell people, and I don't know if I'm assuming you've been to Washington, but from the Lincoln Memorial to the White House is probably as far as you can get away. And so for those patriots to have carried those things, there was even a veteran who lost both of his legs was on one of those Segways.
The Segways,
he was carrying one over, and I thought, wow, this is America.
Yeah.
When you don't like something, our Constitution gives you the right to complain, and it gives you to speak out against it. And you know, I got to tell you, that's some beautiful stuff right
no,
there.
it was.
That's what gives me motivation to know that,
Yep.
you know, the citizenry is alive right now. They're alive. They're fired up. They want to see some absolute change in the business as usual, and I feel very good about it. I feel very good about it. I also caution people that, you know, there's some, you know, just there's got to be something going on. The underbelly of the beast is got to be, you know, watching what's going on, and I'm sure that they're figuring out a way, you know, to prepare for the eventuality of, you know, the citizens having, you know, just basically had enough.
Well, they built
my message is to beat them at the ballot, my guys. You know,
yeah.
You're not going to beat them.
Well, hopefully we get to the ballot. There's two things that we're watching very closely here, and you probably need to be aware of it if you're not. Homeland Security has a private police force that they're depositing throughout the United States as we speak for November 1st. Apparently, there's and I've been talking to some people. Apparently the food stamps are going to reduce food stamp benefits by $36 a month. Now, you know, everybody was like, "Oh my gosh." I have been talking to some people that actually do get government assistance, and they say this goes on. This is a pretty normal thing that they get reduced. It's nothing abnormal. The only thing that's different this time is that the media is actually stroking the fires a little bit and saying, "Oh, people are going to riot. People are going to." So, you know, you hear that enough, you're going to actually follow through. So that's the first thing that we have to watch out for. The other thing is that there are, and they do this every year, so it's no big deal. You know, you got to kind of watch it though, because I think it might pick up speed or a little bit of speed. Is that for this next election cycle, they are talking about extending or taking away the term limits. For you know, there is a House bill. I don't think he's got any co-signers yet, but it was just introduced the other day, where they're thinking about taking away the term limits on the president of the United States.
Those guys they'll never get a majority vote on to do that. You know, that'd be like me saying to you, Jim, that you can talk on the radio all day long, but I'm not going to give you any power. In other words, you can talk to your microphone all day long, and you can say whatever you want to say, but I'm not going to let you transmit it. You know, there's not enough support in that Congress to pass something like that. It's not going to happen.
Well, and it's concerning because, you know, the Democrats, the progressives, we'll call them progressives. The progressives do have the Senate. The issue that they don't have the House, obviously. But what makes it so important, and I think a lot of the issues now, you know, they're wanting to demonize the GOP for the shutdown. I think, you know, God forbid, and God help us, is that in the midterm elections that are coming up, that they do take back the House, and then at that point, you know, we gotta, you know, be a little nervous. So we're kind of watching that and kind of tracking it.
I mean, listen. If someone puts term limits on the table and there's a chance for it to be, you know, passed, I'm certainly all for that, because, you know, these lifetime politicians are, you know, that's just not what our founding fathers had in mind when they put this thing together. So I mean, hey, gosh, if they do, that'd be great. I just, you know, I don't see it happening, you know, but if it does, that's fantastic.
Now, can I put you on the spot? Can I put you
just for the GOP, or is the Democrats?
No. This is not. I'm gonna ask you. You know, one of the things I've been tracking, and I've been doing a lot of research on, and we've had some guests on, is you know, one of the best ways, and we talked about it here, was get the money out of politics. And one of the easiest and quickest ways, and it seems like there is a lot of movement towards this, is reinstatement of the Glass-Steagall Act. And getting Glass-Steagall back in, and getting the banks and everything under financial control again. I mean, what do you have a position on that, or are you still developing your position on that?
Well, I have a position on, do I think that there's too much money flowing through Washington to buy the politicians, whether it be through campaign contributions or, you know, these super PACs that you're talking about, and, you know, you know, the old saying, money is the root of all evil. Well, you know, I mean, how can you have an issue on the table that requires, you know, a vote or an opinion so that you can go down to the floor and vote your conscience if you've got two guys standing behind you bidding for your vote? Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I got you.
Okay. You know, it's like, well, I'll give you this. Well, I'll give you that. And I'll give you this. Oh, he'll give you that. Okay, I'll give. In other words, if you ask me a question about a particular thing like term limits or, you know, should the federal government own, you know, as much federal land as they do right now, for example. Well, if I'm voting what I truly believe and what my constituents have voiced and have sent me to Washington to vote on, where in the hell does a guy from, you know, China or somewhere else have any business even talking to me and offer me anything for my vote to be one way or the other?
Sure.
You know, when I go back home during recess and I meet with my constituents, I'm talking about if I were a congressman or a senator, or for that matter, even president, you know, when I go back and talk to my constituents, I mean, they're telling me what they think and what they want, and they voted me into office. I should be going to Washington to vote based on what the people that sent me there want, what their wishes are.
Sure.
So how does money even play a part in that? So have I developed a position on it other than to keep it simple, is to basically say politicians should not be in a position to be purchased. They should not be able to be bought. Money should not be a factor. It should be totally against the rules. It should be completely thrown out of the process. You know, money buys access. Money buys votes. And if anybody disagrees with that, then I would say that they were wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, they're living in a different world than we are, because I mean that's,
you know, we talked about, you know, the shutdown and stuff briefly, but when I was in the service, we actually had a shutdown, and I can't remember how long it lasted. I think it was a lot longer than this one. It wasn't the last one that happened, because the last one happened like 17 years ago. So this must have been like 20 or 22 years ago. Anyway, it was in the 80s, and the wonderful thing was, like, our military pay and stuff like that. I mean, it was, you know, we couldn't even cash checks at the bank and stuff like that. But like the credit unions and things like this, says, well, you know, of course you can cash your checks here. That's, you know, we know they're good. They're going to be good at some point. So why now, when the government shuts down, is it portrayed as if it's the end of the world? Okay, it's so that more money can flow in that direction. You know, I'm not sure what this latest shutdown was all about. I mean, it didn't seem like anybody had gained anything or lost anything. The only thing that I saw was Obama basically sitting, you know, I call him the sit and wait president. You know, he'll pull the pin on the grenade and throw it, and then just kind of wait to see who he hits with it, and then whoever caves first or whatever. I mean, he just seems to win every time, and that's what's scaring me about the amnesty thing, is that, you know, we see what lengths he's willing to go through to get his way. You know, what's going to be the damage for that?
Sure.
I mean, wasn't he the guy that said when he was campaigning that to raise the debt ceiling is a sign of a very bad leader?
Oh, yeah.
Bad leadership.
He did it when he was senator. I mean, we have the quotes from all of them.
When he was running for office, I think, you know, and now here he is, he's president, and he's done it every time. I mean, so why isn't there somebody in his face right now? And guess what? There is. It's called the American citizen. But, you know, like our Republican, you know, folks who unfortunately are part of the political problem. But Ted Cruz and those guys, why are they in his face saying, explain this to us?
Well,
if you think that raising the debt ceiling then was a sign of bad leadership, then why are you even here today asking us for this? You know what I'm saying?
Well, and that was the thing that I saw, is that they framed their argument when they first hit the floor. They did frame it wrong. They made it an ideological argument instead of staying, for me, obviously with our conversation we had, you learn, I deal with the facts. So I don't know why they didn't frame it of, well, why would you pass a law that you're not willing to follow yourself, that Congress members aren't willing to follow yourself?
Well,
and
if we could get into that for a moment too, I mean, that's a big part of what I'm talking about and what we're talking about as a group is that, what's good for the American people should be good for Congress also, or our elected officials. There was some woman today out in California, and forgive me, I don't know the town or the whatever, but city manager or something like that. I mean, she was paying herself something like $350,000 a year.
Oh yeah,
and was paying all of her friends the same amount. I mean, it was just a ridiculous amount of money. But yet the town is going broke.
Yep.
So I ask you, I mean, who's watching the, who's the oversight on all this stuff? Who's watching this stuff happen? And it's
yeah, someone was signing the checks.
I used to say we don't have a financial crisis in this country. We have a stupid crisis in this country, and to me, that's stupid. Allowing a city manager to determine their own salary seems a little criminal.
Yep. And yeah, and you're right. And like I said, is that someone was signing the check. So at what point does someone say, well, wait a minute, and then we're going to have a former mayor of New Jersey is going to be on the show here. Wrote a really good book that we're finishing up, and then we're going to bring him on. And and that's one of the things that he said is that in some of his memoirs that he was writing, was the fact that when he was an administrator, he got in trouble from raising that and saying, well, wait a minute, this isn't right. We shouldn't be doing that. Well, everybody was like, be quiet because we got a good thing here, and basically got ran out of office for his position on it. And we'll have him on the air here in the next couple of weeks when he can.
Oh, that'd be good. I'll look forward to hearing that.
Yeah.
Well, I used to have this what I call them, sweet dreams, if you will, which is a country that was properly managed. I mean, from its finances to its, to the citizens, prospering. Like, listen, I don't want to give anything away. I don't want anybody to just stand there and not have to do something for it. But I know that the American people have it in them. I know it's in our genes. It's in our DNA to work hard for what we're doing. But what our government is doing is it seems to me that they're training people to do nothing and expect everything.
Oh.
And trust me, my friend, there is a website out there called 115, which is 115, and then the letter m.org. So it's 115m.org. Basically, that's my 115 million patriots that we're looking for to stand up and be heard. Because, guys, the bottom line in all of this that we're discussing right now is enough is enough.
Sure.
Enough of the insanity. To keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result, is, I guess, the true definition of insanity. So, you might have your favorite politician and your favorite, somebody that speaks the things that you want to hear. I'm telling you right now, unless we unite, and again, I'm going back to my united message again, we have to get together, because divided is how they continue to do what they're doing.
Yep.
See, because it may appear in Washington that they're divided, but you can bet your sweet butt that they are as together as they possibly can.
Oh,
they're all swimming in the same cesspool.
Yeah, they're going to get on the plane.
Money,
yeah,
and corruption,
yep.
and it's terrible to use it, but politics. They're just swimming all around together.
Yeah.
I mean, any organization that has Nancy Pelosi in some sort of a leadership capacity, I mean, right there, it's flawed.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
whether Ted, I mean, I think Ted Cruz is a good guy. I think that, you know, Mike Lee's a good guy, and of course, I think Gowdy's a good guy, and I'm sure there's probably 50 or 100 other good guys in there. But when you're taking your cue from at least of all appearances, somebody who's not all there, meaning, you know, Nancy Pelosi, Harry Reid.
Yep.
What the heck?
Yep.
We got to stop doing that.
Well, that's the thing about, you know, hopefully, I know you mentioned Ted Cruz, but, you know, there's some things that we pulled, and I understand everybody's got skeletons in their closet. I mean, that's nothing, but
I've got so many, you're going to kill me when you find out all about them. But you know what I'm going to do, my friend? I'm going to own them.
Yes, I do. I do too. I mean, you got something. I mean, I've already, you know, the fact that we're already doing this, there's a couple posts and I've had some people say some things about me and stuff. And I go back to them and say, yeah, you're absolutely right. I made the mistake. I was naive. I did that. You know, I don't have a criminal record or anything like that.
Right,
I mean,
right.
you know, as a business owner and stuff, there are things that didn't turn out the way I wanted to and stuff. But I will tell you this, is that everybody that invested in anything I did got paid back plus interest. I have that well documented to the point to where, you know, most of those people are you know, investors. You want to talk, you know, Rupert Murdoch, how many friends do you think he's got, you know, after what he did?
Well, yeah,
I can tell you,
I mean, actually, you know what? He probably doesn't have any friends. He's probably got people that just want his money. But no, listen, I'm not into anything, you know. I mean, I'd be hard pressed to say anything negative about me. But what I'm saying is that, you know, whatever you got, bring it to me.
Yeah.
You know, if I did it or I, you know, said it, then I'll own it. You know, there's no sense of, you know, the crime is never the doggone crime. It's the cover-up.
Exactly. It's what you do after the fact. Yeah.
But,
Yep.
I mean, yeah, I've made stupid posts on Google and Facebook and stuff like that. And, you know, if somebody mentions it to me and I look at it and I go, you know what, you're right. You know, that was a stupid thing to say, or that was a dumb thing to post, whatever, you know. But my campaign is not about Facebook, and you know, I have my thoughts about Facebook. I mean, what a great tool that the government developed there, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, you've got the
yeah.
entire population.
Well, you couldn't,
their guts every 5 seconds.
and you couldn't, and
you talk about socialism and social engineering. I mean, geez. Hook, line, and sinker. We're all in it.
I'm a firm believer. If the government came knocking on your door and say, "Give me your associations," everybody that you know that believes like you'd look at them and say, you know, F you, right? Well, now you go on Facebook and now they're all tied together. So, and that's
you know, it was funny. I was mentioning to a friend of mine tonight. There was one of those cover pictures I put on my thing tonight, and I remember I was sitting there and I was like going through a couple of different ones, and I put this one up, and do you know that Facebook actually alerted me and said, hey, we know who that person is in that picture. Would you like to tag them automatically?
Yeah.
And I pondered that for a little while and I said, just the act of me posting a picture on my Facebook page, it recognized a person in that photo.
Yep.
And it automatically asked me if I wanted to tag them. And I thought,
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to do an article on this and everything because, you know, I know the history of Facebook. I know where they got their funding. And like I said, it was one of these things. If the government came to you and said, here's a piece of paper, I want you to write down everybody that you know that thinks like you would tell them to go, you know, jump off thing. One of the main investors, the one that gave Facebook their seed money, was actually working for the CIA, and their job was exactly that within the CIA, was to build these cognitive association systems for the CIA. But they can't.
Succeeded.
Well, they did, because what it is that if you volunteer the information, i.e. Facebook, it's not illegal. You know, it's illegal for the government to corral this information on you. Well, now it's not with you know, the laws that have been passed, but prior to that and stuff. So if you give it, you know, and so I use it. I mean, unfortunately, I mean, that's how we grow our audience, because no one knows us, so we have to you know, use some kind of medium and so. And I don't care. I mean, the government, they already have a record on me. I've already been, you know, I'm already in their system. So.
Well, that's the beauty of it. I mean, you know, they talk about your health care and your records and stuff like that, being out in the cloud and stuff like that. folks, the old saying, be careful what you wish for because you just might get it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's here. It's upon us. We're living it, and it's going to be very difficult to go back. But, there are discussions that, as and understand what the 115M is, right? I mean, that's me and Patriots are gonna get on our bikes and we're gonna ride cross country, up, down, sideways for 4 months next year. Then we're gonna do it again 4 months out of the next year. So for the next 3 years, for 4 months out of the year, we're gonna be on the road for 4 months solid straight. Okay. And we're going to be hitting as many towns as we possibly can. And our volunteers that are out there right now are setting up, stops where we can, speak to large groups of people, whether it be at a VFW or an American Legion or a Moose Lodge or wherever there are citizens that might have questions or want to get involved or something like that. So we will be coming to a town near you.
Wonderful.
But I bring that up because you simply, Facebook and social media, like you said, is great for getting the word out as best you possibly can. But I will tell you this, there's nothing better than good old-fashioned face-to-face handshake, looking at body language. Most kids today, and maybe even some young adults, don't even know what I'm talking about. But Jim, I could size you up in 3 seconds if we met face-to-face.
Yep.
Okay? And I'm sure you could do the same to me because that's what we used to have to do before we had, technology.
Sure.
And so now we've kind of grown in an acceptance that, okay, one of my supporters said, hey, this guy Jim wants to talk to you. We got on the phone. I mean, so we've developed a relationship, and, I've checked you out. You've checked me out. We're going to, we've begun something here.
Yep.
But it's off of that, initial medium, which was this thing called Facebook. And, and I think that's great, and I think that's the way things ought to be, But 2 mornings ago, I think it was, that Facebook was down. You couldn't share anything. You couldn't post anything. You could get on it, but you couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
My gosh, man, people were melting
down.
Yeah,
you should have seen the internet was lighting up. That was, and like
it was incredible, man.
And
so,
yep.
So I would say to people that, use it. It's a great tool for, this, that, and the other, but there's nothing wrong with a handshake or a hug every now and again, and get out and see people and be social like we used to do, because once we lose our ability to share the same space is when I think things get really real,
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, it's like I said, I mean, we use it to introduce ourselves, but then we have conversations like this. And,
right.
I can tell you, I mean, the friendships that I developed and everything. I mean, I've already been invited out, out your way, your direction and stuff to hang out. And one of the things that we want to do as we grow this medium, this show, is that, I'm not bashful. I mean, I think the audience already knows we want to buy an RV. We want to put in a small studio inside it, and we want to travel the country, sit down at the dinner table or wherever we're at, wherever we wake up that day, put the microphone out and have conversations just like this, but then bring everybody into the conversation and say, all right, this is what.
Then why don't we do this? Why don't we I'll get the RV next May 1st. We're leaving out of Augusta, Maine.
Okay.
On our way to Crescent City, California.
Okay.
We're going to be going. It's going to take 4 months to do it.
That's fine.
And let's work together on that. Let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Absolutely. I'm with you.
Get it?
I got you 2 birds with 1 stone. So no.
Well, we can talk about that. But again, this is what I'm talking about. This is everybody working together for a common goal. You have a need to put information out that's correct, fair. Fox has messed that up, fair and balanced.
Yep.
The truth, this type of thing. And I have the same goal to hear people, hear their pains, and try to come up with solutions that's going to, work for everybody, but everybody the same and everybody differently.
Sure.
And but anyway, that's something that we can work
absolutely.
together and
Absolutely.
So I see lots of synergies there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing is too is to help you get your message out there. Obviously, you're doing radio shows and stuff. I mean, we own or we pay for, I would say, this medium. The voice. I would say the SoundCloud and Spreaker and all of those things. So if you wanted to do, like a weekly podcast or a weekly, you were saying that you wanted to spend an hour a week where you just talk to people and stuff. I mean, we could set that up, and we would definitely allow you to use our resources to communicate with that. One of the things
that would be great.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that we've also discovered, which is not anything new, is, I love people asking questions and being able to answer them. Now, within our own little, campaign that we're doing, I do twice a week. I have a call-in thing where people can call in and participate in an online conference, and I speak about different things, and then I open it up for questions. But one of the things we wanted to do over the winter time was to pick a subject, and that be the subject of the week, whether it be taxes or, foreign policy or, whatever seems to be, appropriate at the moment, but with a scheduled thing, and then, and just beat those issues to a pulp until we've got enough input from the American citizens to where we can, put together a plan that, solves the issue. Because I have my solution.
Yeah.
But my solution may not be perfect, and it's not going to be perfect until I get input from the citizens.
Yeah.
I mean, I have opinions just like you do, and just like that's one thing about the American spirit, boy. We have opinions.
So. Oh, no, I'm for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to do that. I could actually stop, what we're doing, and just kind of, like I said, kill a couple of birds with one stone, and be able to reach a larger audience. I mean,
sure.
Obviously, you speak the message. I mean, your name says it, the Midnight Patriot. I mean, if people truly knew what a patriot was, they'd be on board automatically.
Yes.
A patriot's willing to die for what they believe in, and I don't. It's kind of weird to say, but I'm not ever going to follow what this government is dishing out. I'm just not going to do it. And if it comes down to dying as opposed to standing up and to them, they're going to have to kill me. That's how much I believe what I believe.
And that's one thing that we preach here is that it's a time that this is the time that you start developing those friendships and those groups, because when the government is knocking on your door because they feel that your speech is against them and stuff, you've got to have a support group that's going to come to your rescue or to your aid. And
right.
that's one thing that we're huge about too.
Well, my speech is definitely against them, and my business plan, which was written 235 years ago, gives me the right to do that, and I'm going to do that. So, I mean, they can knock on my door all they want, and and they're listening to us right now, and they've been listening to everything I'm saying, and they should actually be grateful, because I think that I am a voice of reason, in a sense that the true way to revolution in these modern times is not with guns. Is that a plan B? Well, I'm sure it is, but the way to democracy and to return this republic to the greatness that it once was is through that ballot box, because that's what our forefathers foresought. I just made a word up. You see, I can do that as a presidential candidate. I can make words, right?
Well, then they would make fun of you, though. The media would be like, "Oh, this guy's crazy." It's like, well, no, wait a minute. They'd make fun of you, but no, it's.
Yeah, think about it. Imagine if we were, patriots back in the early years of this country being born. I mean, it must have been it must have been some of the harshest times, but some of the most greatest moments ever, you know.
Oh yeah. To be a part of
wow.
to be part of that.
And we're faced with that right now because we are revolutionary thinkers. We are, you know, we're not happy with the kings and the queens of our government, and so we are revolting.
Yes.
And we're doing it, you know, we're doing it peacefully.
Oh, I'm a firm believer that we are going to be a part of history, you know, one way or the other. Because we can't continue down this path.
Can we touch on another completely different?
Oh, absolutely.
Subject?
We got about 15.
We'll come back. To
yeah,
this,
no, we got about 15
earlier,
minutes left.
Quickly, which was the fact that the DHS is placing, you know, different things around the country and stuff like that, and there's a lot of talk of, you know, barbed wire and prisons and things like that. You know, I would love if we could find a group or some people that may have some knowledge, you know, like that 72,000 square foot bunker that's being built in Missouri. You're familiar with that?
Oh yeah.
Okay. You know, I'd like to know more about, you know, what that's all about and, you know, what the intended use is, you know, this kind of stuff, because I think if the American citizen can get a clear a clear path to some of the tyranny that's happening right before our eyes, once again, talking about welfare and illegal aliens is really pales in comparison to if, in fact, we are building a world government headquarters right in Missouri. You know, that might concern people if, in fact, we can get facts that actually support that. You know, I think that would be something that the American citizens would be definitely interested in, because, you know, you're hearing all, you know, you hear Alex Jones, you hear, you know, Hannity, you hear Limbaugh. They're all talking about these little different things. You know, let's pick something and take 2 weeks to investigate it completely and put the information out there that's, you know, 100%.
I actually am in a couple steps ahead of you. Some of the research that we're doing here, like I said, we want to be a research, you know, patriot, you know, research, and we want boots on ground kind of scenario. So we have actually put a Freedom of Information Act out there for the government contract, the construction contract of that facility.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so, you know, are we going to get it? I don't know. Or is it going to get redacted when we get it? I don't know. I mean, the plan is, so there's a couple things that I'm in the process of doing. Is one of the things is we're upgrading our phone system so we'll be able to have 12 callers on at the same time for the studio. The other thing is I am in the process of purchasing a high definition camera, video camera, so that I can travel to these sites and actually, you know, I know Alex is out there, he's doing it and everything and stuff, but, you know, that our goal is, you know, Alex can't be everywhere. I mean, he's, you know, his crew, they're doing their thing and stuff, and that's one of the things that we're going to do. And I've got an air base that was shut down in Wisconsin here that, well, I probably shouldn't say this because they know we're coming, but we're going to go see if they actually have it set up as a FEMA camp.
Can you do me a favor when you get ready to do that?
Yeah.
Though? And I'm going to give you a couple of pieces of the pie that I think we're going to make it taste better. There's a movement going on, as you know. There's the American citizen spirit is starting to get charged up again. And for example, when we do the rides and the veteran marches and now they're going to do Christian marches to DC and stuff like that. And this is kind of a message to the American people. Folks, that stuff is great. Keep doing it. But if we could get large numbers of people to show up at places like the new castle they're building in Missouri and start asking questions, you know, okay, Sarah Palin, instead of showing up in D.C. to, with the, cheering the crowds on and stuff like that, go stand in front of that facility and start asking the questions.
Yeah.
Ted Cruz, you are inside the building. You come out to Missouri and tell the public that this building is nothing more than a gymnasium for, the disadvantaged children, that we all know you don't build 3 feet thick walls and 72,000 square feet, and you know what I'm trying to say. I'm just trying to be facetious. But,
but that's what's being sold to us.
Bring these politicians who say they give a damn about the American people and tell us what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Are there tunnels that are built under the United States that travel for thousands of miles? I don't know. I've seen video. I don't know if the video is real. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
what do you know about those?
Well, I mean, I'm like you. I've seen the videos, but I can't substantiate them. I mean, I can tell you this, just logic, once again, I kick back to my logic. Logic tells me, like in Denver International Airport, there's obviously something being built there, and then if you look at the, if you go and look at the facades and the paintings and stuff, I mean, they're pretty scary stuff. I mean, this is stuff that you would see in a Tim Burton movie, kind of, and the apocalypse and kind of stuff. And so, there's something going on now. I am a researcher of the Agenda 21 programs out of Brazil, and we're doing a documentary on that as well. So you kind of start seeing these things and you start putting them together. My goal as a journalist, as a broadcaster, is to say, and that's why it's very critical. Obviously, you've been on our site. Everything we talk about in the air, if you click on the link for that day and you say sources, you will see all of our sources. Now, and then the reason why we do that is so that you can come back to me and say, hey, Jeff, this source isn't that credible. You need to, and that's why we do it.
Let me sum up my point in this. Sure. What I'm asking is, for example, like 9/11, and I don't want to talk about the who's right, who's wrong, but I'm simply saying that if we know that there's video footage of what happened to the Pentagon, for example. We know that there's video footage because there was many cameras pointed in that direction. The tapes and everything was confiscated. What does it say to the American people that knowing that evidence exists, but yet they won't let us see it? What right do they have to not let us see it? Now, do I believe that some things ought to be kept, hush, hush because of, the world we live in? I think so. But is that one of them? You understand what I'm saying?
Well,
is that one of the things that we want to keep?
When you use it as an argument on why you go to war.
The logic in that.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
Questions about, what actually took place that day, then, you understand what I'm trying to say?
No,
if this building is being built for some, purpose and we're paying for it, then we should have the right to know what it's for.
Yep.
Hey, listen, if it's for the new, president of the world to live in, fine, tell us that. Don't just have him show up one day and go, here, eat this, folks.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I mean, we are paying for it.
And why when I call it the machine, why the machine is going to fight me tooth and nail from now until November 8th is because I'm going to say to the American people that whatever's going on there, I will find out and you will know. If there are tapes regarding the Pentagon and the World Trade Centers of what happened that day, and I don't mean that maybe everything happened exactly the way that we saw it and everything like that, but if there's additional evidence that would help convince the naysayers, I want to see it. I want them to have access to it. You understand what I'm saying?
I'm with you. Okay. I mean, yep.
They've had, 40 years to cover up what actually happened to Kennedy, but no reasonable person who knows anything about, ordinances and firearms and things like that. One bullet can't shoot 3 people in 3 different directions. It just doesn't happen. But yet they'll say it enough times, and then people start to believe it.
Yep.
And so I think that I think we have a right to know of these things that are happening, whether it's Denver or Missouri or the tunnels or 9/11 or any of this stuff.
Yep.
Well, I mean, we can't keep doing this stuff in secret, and that's why we're in the position we're in right now, where you've got almost 200 million people that are quiet, and only 100 million are participating in the in the process. But I'm telling you right now, those 200 million people are going to wake up. Yeah. Actually, it's 115 million because, our children, they have a voice. I mean, they can hire lawyers and sue their parents and stuff, but they can't vote. Maybe they should be able to vote, but so we need those 115 million patriots to wake up, stand up, and say, "I've had enough."
I got you. So, one of the things, and you make a great point about it. If the government was just truthful with us, it would alleviate a lot of our, concerns. And, I actually got an answer to a question that was on a lot of patriots' mind: is why would the National Weather Service need to be purchasing ammunition? The National Weather Service. So I actually pressed the issue and continued to press the issue, and I finally got believe it or not, I got a response, and it's pliable. That the response that I got back is the National Weather Service actually has access throughout the United States, because of FEMA, has access to the satellites that are orbit the Earth. They can get feeds off of them and different things of that nature. There's security for it in the event of an emergency or an event of an incident. They have to have a security, because those systems, they have hard sites throughout the United States that they have to secure, obviously, because a terrorist can get access to those things and wreak havoc on the satellites, number one. And then number two, they have mobile systems that they can deploy at any given moment to these areas. And because of the type of technology that's associated with them, once again, that you can take control of satellites. So they have to have armed guards. The National Weather Service has a division within itself of armed guards to protect those assets. I
probably, if you'd asked me that question, I probably could have given you that answer. I mean, I wouldn't have had any facts to back it up, but I would say absolutely.
But everybody was like, why is the National...
I certainly understand, the need for that.
It makes sense.
But for every question that you get answered, there's got to be 10 more that that they won't. And
yes.
Yes.
Why do they have a bunch of body bags in Atlanta, Georgia? Or
they plan on a bunch of people dying in Atlanta.
Yeah.
Well, because the CDC's down there, and that's where their headquarters is, and that's where they stockpile them. Yep. And if you need them in Hawaii, then they can ship a plane load out there.
But then after Jesse that may not be
the right answer, but that's certainly a
but then the question is, after Jesse Ventura blew all that open and stuff, the coffins in the body. If you're not doing anything wrong, you give that answer, right? Well, then after they videotaped him and stuff, everything disappeared. So you're kind of like, and everything. So wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things, like you said, that if I think I said it too, is that if you have, if you look upon your citizenry or your population as just a bunch of dummies, and they can't be trusted with information, then you've given up on your citizens. Yep. And keep in mind, the Congress and the Senate and even the President, they're going to come and go, but there's still this stink left behind.
Sure.
You understand what I'm saying?
I got you.
Hey, no matter who's in there, it's the same wheel is still spinning. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Hey, Stone, I hate to cut you off, but the network, I just got a beat from the network and stuff.
Okay.
We've got 2 minutes left, and then we're done. We've been talking for 3 hours, and I want to apologize to the listeners, but hey, this was a great conversation. We'll take what we were going to talk about tonight and we'll shift it to tomorrow. So we'll still talk about securing your PC. We'll talk about Ted Cruz, IRS, NSA, all those things. I'll give you my expose on Islam and President Obama, how he fits in that and some of the decision-making processes. So Stone, with that, awesome conversation, man. It's been incredible. I really appreciate it and stuff. How do we get in touch with you? With the last, we've got about a minute and a half left. So
all right.
Let's get out your information.
Well, I want to thank you also, man. It's been a great conversation. It feels like we just started, man. We could talk for hours more, I think. But go to the website, folks. It's www, of course. StoneAnthony2016.com. That's StoneAnthony2016.com. Right at the top of the page is a petition. I'm asking every patriot to sign it. Again, I'm not asking for your vote right now. I'm just asking you to sign a petition so we can participate in the process. I think eventually I'll get your vote because I'm going to be fighting for you. and we're going to be working together, and it's going to be incredible what we're going to do to turn this country around. Also, top right-hand corner of the website, there's a phone number there. If anybody that's listening right now ever wants to talk to Stone Anthony, write that phone number down and call me. That'll be the same phone number that I'll have when I become president of the United States, and you'll be able to call me then also. Access to me is key to gaining your support and your trust, and I won't let you down in that regard.
Absolutely.
But right now, it's getting that petition signed. We need 1 million signatures. That's a lot of signatures, folks. Something like 3,000 a day for the next year.
Sure, I'm gonna cut in Stone real quick, and everybody, all of the links and everything you can actually find at www.themidnightpatriot. That's www.themidnightpatriot. God bless you. May God keep your family and everything, and we appreciate it.